Session to order, please. Hopefully everybody's enjoying their summer. I know you are. Poor Suzanne's been house hunting. Not the way you want to spend your summer. You've been to the beach. All right, first, y'all all set. First item on the agenda will be the renewal of the superintendent's contract. You all should have a copy of the contract. Before we begin, I'm going to read you part of the report from the evaluation. And I'll be glad to send you this report after the meeting if you so wish to have a hard copy. I'm trying to get down to the part you want to hear. The evaluation used this year was developed through board input and based on a 4.0 scale. In addition to the board's completion of the evaluation, evaluations are completed by members of the district cabinet as well as a self-evaluation done by the superintendent, which does not figure into the overall evaluation. Results are based on weighted averages. The board observational data at 35%, the cabinet survey at 20%, and achievement of board goals / strategic plan at 45%, which was all on your evaluations, as you know. The weighted results of the evaluation of the superintendent for 2017-2018 by area are as follows. Relationship with the board, highly effective, or 4.0. Community relations, highly effective. Staff relationships, highly effective. Business and finance, highly effective. Student potential, highly effective. And district results, highly effective. The superintendent has demonstrated the highest level of effectiveness in all individual domains for an overall rating of 3.9 out of 4, which is considered highly effective. Additionally, the board developed specific goals and indicators from the strategic plan. These goals were scored by the school board only. District results in this area. Goal 1, do y'all need me to read your goals? No? Okay. Goal 1, 4.0. Goal 2, 4.0. Goal 3, 4.0. The board unanimously scored the superintendent and by extension the district as highly effective. The highest level for success in meeting and exceeding the indicators detailed in our strategic plan. Again, this component accounted for 45% of the superintendent's overall effectiveness score. Based on the evaluation and the scores, the chair and the superintendent have identified the 2 following areas for growth. Self-improvement, increasing the superintendent's professional development opportunities. Visibility, increasing the number of the superintendent's regular school visits. Additionally, the superintendent and the chair have also identified 2 areas of strength based on his highest scores. What I just read, the district results on the Germantown Board of Education strategic plan, and 2, staff development, increasing opportunities for professional development for our staff. And so with that, the floor is open for questions, comments.
Congratulate the superintendent.
Thank you. And what I would say too is thank you to all the people from the district, because this is a team effort. When we talk about our achievement of these goals and objectives, it's a family that was able to accomplish all of these things. So it's not just my evaluation, it's also theirs too.
And
Job well done.
It was a job well done, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I felt like this evaluation was a much fairer representation of what we were looking for as a board, as far as what we envision being accomplished for the school district. So I think the board was happy with the new version, and it was reviewed by legal counsel before you all did put your hands on it. So, but yes, congratulations to everybody who took part, who had a part, no matter how big or how small, with the success, because it's been an incredible year.
And I agree. This evaluation was more based on measurable objectives.
And which was important. I think after last year's evaluation, what we heard as a board from each other was, we need something that's measurable. rather than,
Subjective.
thank you, subjective. Comments? Questions? Any questions of Ms. Speakman who's joined us tonight?
Is this, are we discussing, what are we, because
We're still in evaluation.
Are we done with
Yeah.
evaluation?
Okay.
or
No,
are we
well,
moving on
no,
to Renewal of contract.
Renewal of contract.
Okay.
You may
I was-
move to renewal of contract. Actually, the evaluation is going to be presented at the general meeting for that, so I apologize. I meant evaluation if you had any comment, and now we can move into renewal of contract. And I know you had some questions, so if you would like to address those to Ms. Stickman.
Sure. And I guess just to be clear, because we're kind of in a. I can't see you, I'm sorry. Just because we are in kind of a little bit of a, from a council perspective, just to kind of clarify, I think it'd be helpful to clarify kind of your role in this particular area. And then I'm just curious also just how we contract with you. Is it a email that says, hey, we need your help here? Because I know we have the overarching kind of agreement, but how do we engage you by project?
Well, first, let me speak to the issue of how did I get engaged, I suppose. And that is that the chairwoman asked me to look over the contract and give my advices on behalf of the board as to the saliency of the asks and the contract in general. So that's how that came about. There is no contract between myself and anyone in Germantown.
Okay.
And I would say that that's pretty typical, that most firms don't have a contract per se.
Our previous council was engaged on a month-to-month basis.
Okay. Good to know. Okay.
Would it be easier, in that, I think you've telegraphed your question,
ma'am.
so would it be easier if I
That'd
just
be
step through the
perfect.
contract
Yes,
for you?
ma'am. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
great,
That'd be
sure.
great.
All right, so there are very few proposed changes in the contract. And of course, the contract changes were initiated by the superintendent to the board. And so let me walk you through those. Number one is just as a matter of law that the prior contract would terminate upon the adoption of a new contract. So that's what paragraph 1, there's a change in that language, obviously, to reflect that the present contract terminates on June 30. The second paragraph is a change in the term of the agreement, so that you would essentially have a renewal of a contract in that the first contract, it would be terminated. So that renewal goes from July 1, 2018 and ends on June 30, 22, not to exceed the 4 years that are allowable by state law. Flipping all the way over to Section 8, this is not a change, but just to be perfectly transparent, I point out to you that the compensation, if you, in paragraph 8, if you were to compare it to the initiating contract, it would appear that there's been an increase there, but that increase was by operation of contract throughout the years, such that there's no new increase. It would be the amount that the superintendent would already be receiving on July 1 of 2018. But to make it absolutely clear, I thought it best for the board's protection to reflect what the current salary would be as of July 1, rather than trying to make that interpretation and recalculation over a period of time.
And that's because within the contract, he receives the same raise that the teachers receive.
Precisely,
Let's make sure
yes.
that's clear on that.
Okay,
Yes.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
When it says shall receive salary increases equivalent to increases given to the teachers, it doesn't specify percentage. Is that according to the percentage, or is it an amount? For example, if there's a bonus given to teachers, is that also applicable in that section?
Well, I can tell you that I didn't draft this language, but I can tell you that, and there's no change in the language from what was originally contemplated.
Okay.
I can tell you that generally the, I guess, prevailing view of that language would be that if there's a percentage increase given, it would be accordant with what would be given to the superintendent.
Okay.
Going to the next section in automobile and mileage allowance, paragraph 9, there was, at the inception of the previous contract, if you adopt this one, or present contract, so to say, it specifies that the director shall maintain an automobile liability policy of no less than $500,000 per accident and shall provide the board a copy of the declarations page from his insurance policy naming the board as an additional insured. It was the superintendent's proposal to strike that language, and I can say that I've never seen anything like that in any superintendent's policy, contract before. There's really no benefit to the board for that to be in there, because if the superintendent is driving his own car, his insurance would be primary anyway. And the district already has a no-owned vehicle policy that covers the board after that. I would say additionally that I've found a little out of the ordinary the amount of coverage that would be required for the superintendent to drive his own car. Because, of course, his insurance covers not just when he's driving on school board business, but his own personal business. And frankly, I don't have any idea how much the superintendent pays for his auto liability insurance policy, but I would guess that it's quite a bit more than what most of us would pay on our car insurance. So well, I'll leave it at that. I think you got the gist of that.
Question on that, sorry. It says we pay him a $400 a month automobile allowance.
Yes.
And then reimbursed for mileage expenses. Is that mileage, the mileage per, that includes wear and tear, or is that just gas reimbursement? Because if we're paying him already for a car allowance, is that not kind of both?
Well,
how does that
let
work?
me say it this way.
How does that work?
Okay, yeah. So let me say this. That's not, that's what's currently in his current contract.
Right,
And that,
right.
the language he's had in there the whole time, so that's not a change. I frankly don't know how that's been interpreted by you all. Heretofore, perhaps the superintendent would be in a better, or perhaps the CFO would be in a better position to answer how that's been interpreted heretofore. But that's my response.
Yeah, the $400, I guess, is considered an allowance to purchase a vehicle that is part of his taxable income. And then the mileage reimbursement is for wear and tear on the vehicle as he travels to meetings outside of Shelby County.
But it is outside of Shelby County.
I think so, yes.
Is it outside of Shelby
I
County?
think that's all you submit reimbursements for.
Okay. Again, skipping way ahead, and no other changes until you get to paragraph 13. This, frankly, was partly at my suggestion because, frankly, I thought that the paragraph would invite litigation if anyone ever tried to interpret it, and here's what I mean by that. Look at the second sentence. It says, the director shall be entitled to the sick leave, annual leave, and personal leave benefits as provided for the 12-month administrative personnel of the Germantown Municipal School District in accordance with the board's adopted policies and procedures, or as may be amended, which are incorporated herein by reference. So he earns these leaves by virtue of and reliance upon Germantown School District's policies and procedures. In those policies and procedures, there is a provision that if someone were to leave the district, they would be paid for their accrued but unused vacation time. They would not be paid for sick time. That amount, in fact, rolls to the TCRS allotment, but you don't get a payment for that. Yet, in the existing contract, it provides that upon termination of this contract, the director shall be paid at a rate of 50% of his daily rate of pay for any accrued but unused leave days. Well, included in the leave days definition is also the sick days, which is abhorrent to the rules of the TCRS. So I made a suggestion that if, that we say that the sick days shall be cumulative and unused sick leave days, and they may be used for retirement credit as they are in other districts for TCRS. So that's consistent also with Germantown's current policies and procedures. Above that, the statement that upon termination of the contract, the director shall be paid for all accrued but unused vacation, personal leave, and bonus days. That's consistent then with the current policies of the Germantown School District. So if you were not to have that language in the contract and leave it the way that it is written right now, there is a conflict within that section about the second sentence and then how the last sentence would work in harmony together. This also is consistent with what I am accustomed to seeing in other superintendents' contracts too, just as a matter of course. The next section, I'm sorry, one other thing about that section that I found was also in conflict was in section 19D, there was a provision that the board may at its option and by a minimum of 60 days notice unilaterally and without cause terminate the contract of the superintendent. And then you'll see in here that it says in the event of such termination, the board shall pay to the director as severance pay the full salary and benefit package enumerated within this contract. Well, if that then were the case, that's in clear conflict with what was in section 13, providing for a reduction of the vacation period. So I thought it was very important to harmonize that to preclude any conflict should litigation arise at any point, or should the parties end up in a situation where they're trying to negotiate out the end of a contract. The next section is section 19B. Now, this section came about because Superintendent Manuel attended a conference at which the attorney who typically advises superintendents of their contracts, but also is the attorney for the Ames Group, went through with different superintendents throughout the state different recommendations regarding superintendent contracts. And so what was said was that the type of penalty that's set forth in section 19B that provides that if the superintendent voluntarily terminates his employment, he must pay a $15,000 penalty. And his opinion is that that was unenforceable. So the chair lady asked me to contact that lawyer to find out if, that was in fact what he said, not because she doubted the superintendent obviously, but just to have another attorney talk to another attorney, so to speak, to ensure that that's what he said. And he's somebody I've known for a very long time, being in this very small education community in this state. I'm sure you all know him very well too. But he assured me that he did in fact say that that provision was enforceable. My review of that section is that I agree that with his conclusion that it is enforceable or potentially, unenforceable or potentially unenforceable, because a contract's not enforceable until a court says it's unenforceable, right? But the reasoning for me for the board to have the benefit of removing that section is in addition to, I think, what that attorney's thought was. And here's my reasoning that I think that that provision really hamstrings the board. You'll look under section 19A, and it says this contract may be terminated by mutual agreement of the parties. And it goes on to say breach of contract, retirement, disability, etc. In that provision, when there's mutual agreement of the parties, breach of contract, etc., that paragraph provides for there being a non-payment, if you will, of the superintendent's contract if there was mutual agreement to do so. If looking then at section B, section 19B, it provides that in the event that the director should desire to terminate this contract for any reason prior to its expiration, he shall give notice, et cetera, and that if he voluntarily terminates his employment during the term, he will in fact have to pay that $15,000 penalty. Well, the cases are clear in Tennessee that these penalties are not favored by law, and they are against public policy generally. There are provisions for liquidated damages clauses, but those liquidated damages clauses are interpreted by some very specific guidelines and that I don't necessarily think apply here. But again, going back to my bigger concern for the board in striking that provision is that if, in my experience, many, and I might even go as far as to say most superintendent contracts are in fact severed by mutual agreement. And so if that were the case, it would hamstring the board to be in a position to mutually agree with the superintendent without him being concerned he was going to have to pay $15,000. It puts the board in a much better negotiating position for mutual agreement to not have to pay out somebody's contract, to say in fact that there is no penalty if there's mutual agreement. So my concerns are obviously for the greater good of the board rather than just the superintendent, and so I feel inclined to point out to the board that I think their better incentive is to remove that penalty for that very reason. So also then the last change is also in section.
Well, we did also have another change.
I'm back
sorry,
up.
on the back section. Sorry, in the last section?
On B.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Are you talking about the 60 days?
Yeah, that's why I'm still on.
I'm sorry, I thought you were going back to the back section. Okay, sorry. Go
Okay,
ahead.
okay. So I'm still on 19B again. And this is a provision that says, should the director decide to terminate the contract for any reason prior to its expiration, he shall give written notice to the board of such intent at least 5 months prior to the effective date of such voluntary termination. It is, if you look then in section D, you'll find that if the board decided to unilaterally terminate the contract, they only have to give 60 days. So there are a couple of things that should be considered. One is the principle of the mirror image rule in a contract, that where one party is not treated in the same manner in which the other party is treated. And in this particular case, it would be said that there's there's a very large discrepancy between the manner in which one party would be treated versus another in terms of notice. The second thing that concerns me is that, in addition to the fact that I've frankly never seen in a superintendent contract there being that long of a period of notice, is that I believe there's a possibility that it could be construed as being unenforceable for violative of against public policy. And the reason is this, is that superintendents frankly are very few and far between. Putting that kind of a penalty on a profession, if you will, much like some of the constraints that you put on the legal profession, it would not be viewed as being something that would be in the benefit of the state of Tennessee, even, for example, or perhaps even nationally, because superintendents are not in large demand. Additionally, it seems to me that a court would be hard-pressed. Let me back up one step. So the 60 days or 5 months would be theoretically, if you did not provide the requisite amount of notice, would be the amount of damages that the school district would suffer as a consequence of that breach of that provision. It seems to me that a court would be hard-pressed to say that a school district was damaged in the amount of 5 months of wages for not giving that requisite notice. Now, there's some old cases in Tennessee that talk about how even the 2 weeks notice can be considered to be onerous in certain situations. But I believe that's reasonable and enforceable, and I've seen cases in which 30 days even is considered to be reasonable. Frankly, you might be pushing it at 60 days, but I think we could make a colorable argument that 60 days is how long it would take to find somebody else or even somebody to step in the interim. But again, I think 5 months is onerous, would be viewed by a court to be onerous, and I think against public policy. So I think that is
So what is the standard?
about 60 days, 30 to 60 days.
So in superintendent contracts, so, okay.
Yeah, I see more 30, frankly, but it seemed like a big jump to go from 5 to 30, so I was trying to stay within the balance of what I've seen and what I thought the board's intention was, which was to give them as much time as possible to retain another superintendent.
And this is probably just more cleanup,
Okay.
but if you look in item 19D, it references paragraph 18A. Just wondering if that should be 19D. And then the same in 19F.
Yeah, saw that too.
So
There
the
is
second-
no 18A.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Yeah, again, I didn't draft this, and frankly, I was, if I were to make another recommendation in addition to that, so I think that's a point well taken, so.
That and D and F, and I don't know who
Yep.
has the master, who's in charge of the contract.
I don't, I
Okay,
didn't draft
so,
that.
so and also in 19F, it should be, I think, 19D.
B. Yep, because 18.
It's just
has no-
18.
Has none.
And then also, if you notice, we skipped from 19D to 19F. There is no 19E, so we might want to just,
Yep.
I mean, just so that it
I
doesn't
did
beg
get
the
that.
question as to,
That is marked on
Okay,
the.
okay.
We had an attorney on our original board that actually drafted this.
Oh, okay. I'm certainly not going to call out anyone in my profession. I mean, I respect them all, so. Is there anything else, Ms. Jones? Because I had one other suggestion, if we're making suggestions.
no, I mean, that was as far as that.
So what happened was, after I did my initial review, it came, and I believe I mentioned this at the retreat of the board, it came to my attention that in the duties section in section 6, it references that the superintendent was given a job description. I have exhausted I've turned over every rock I know to turn over, and I can't find any job description that is, according to this, addended to the contract. Now, if you don't want to take that out, fine. Clearly, somebody can't be held accountable for something that they never had, but if we're just cleaning up, I would tell you that might make some sense. But that was the only other primary suggestion that I had.
I wasn't at the retreat, I don't know how that dialogue went. Did we come to a
We
conclusion, or
didn't,
did
we didn't really
decide
come
what we should do?
to a conclusion because.
We didn't discuss it.
We didn't discuss it.
I just
We
pointed out
didn't-
when I was showing the
yeah,
contract
when she
what
was
it
showing
looks
the
like.
contract, because we really didn't discuss anything at the retreat. To that end.
So we can either take that out and just have it be
Or we
according
can
to the
write
law,
one.
or we can write
Right.
the right one.
But
That's our
we need to
choices.
do one or the
Yeah.
other.
So our choices are, we either just leave it according to the Tennessee Code, job description, or we create our own.
Right. Those are the choices. Because I personally don't think we need to have anything in the contract we're not adhering to.
I would agree with that.
So I think this section here that says, so it's perhaps after the comma here, that says, as well as those listed in the job description for director as adopted by the board or may be from time to time amended during the term of his agreement, that appears to be a nullity because it was never even drafted. So that may be where it makes sense to.
What's standard in superintendent contracts?
I'm sorry, pardon me?
What is standard?
Oh,
in
oh, oh,
superintendent
oh,
contracts?
yes.
Most people have a job description.
You know,
attached.
there's a mixed bag.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
I think, frankly, most people really go by what's in the statute, but they also go by what's in their policy. And so there are, in fact, in your policies, job duties that are set forth for the superintendent. And so, I mean, frankly, I think it's pretty all-encompassing without drafting another job description, but probably for the same reason Ms. Parker said that there was a diligent lawyer who was, trying to
We were trying to do
cover all
this
the
within a
bases,
month.
but that maybe that's how it ends up. I don't think it's necessary, personally, but because those job descriptions are really well defined.
Yeah, they are in the TCA.
So,
And then, so following that then, that says such job description as so amended is hereby incorporated in this agreement by reference as if fully stated herein. And then the next one,
It's also refers.
yeah, that says the director shall devote such time and energies as are necessary to perform the duties specified, and you could say above and strike in the job description. I think that takes care of all of that,
so
language.
depending on how you all feel, when the chair asks for a motion to consider the contract, someone would have to make an amendment to number 6 and move to amend, if you wish to strike it.
And we'd be striking as well as those listed to the end of that sentence agreement.
Yes.
And the next sentence, and then we would, the following one, the director shall devote such time and energies as are necessary to perform the duties specified in the above description.
No,
I
it just
said
says.
in above.
In above?
Or
No, above.
Just above, not.
Specified above.
So in the job description goes away.
Okay.
So that is y'all's call. I think Tennessee Code's job description is very thorough, and our policies cover what obviously the board's desire was for this superintendent to accomplish or to do. So it's whether or not y'all want to move forward. But if we choose to leave it in here, then we have to write the job description. We can't just let it hang out there. Okay, other questions? Did you get all your questions answered?
No, I have a couple more.
Okay. Well, I was
and-
asking Suzanne had,
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. I have a few more,
Mind if
but
I have-
you go
I
ahead and go.
interrupt you? Okay.
Ms. Ove.
Under the section on loyalty, it says, "The director may, however, undertake consulting work, speaking engagements, writing, lecturing, other activities that do not interfere with discharge of the duties and responsibilities of the director hereunder." How are we to know whether it conflicts? Is there I do not see a requirement that the superintendent needs to inform the board of outside work or the time commitment involved in the outside work. So do you see what I'm asking is,
How would we
how are
know?
we to know?
It says here that he has to notify, the board shall notify the director in writing if the board makes this determination.
Right,
So
but how
obvi-
are we to determine that if we're not getting that
I
information?
understand what you're saying. Again, that's existing language, but, so there's no change in that. I don't know what has been the manner in which the board has known
We haven't.
that heretofore.
I haven't done any consulting.
Well, but there's the
Right.
potential for that, and I don't want to keep you from having that opportunity, but at the same time, we need to be aware
Yeah,
Somehow
if it
that-
occurs.
if it occurs, if and
Well,
when
because it's not
it
just
occurs.
the consulting work, it's the speaking engagements, the writing, the lecturing, other activities as well.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's as easy as after that sentence that says hereunder, to say that, the director will or shall inform the members of
The board, maybe?
board, prior, how about in writing, right?
Yes.
In writing, prior to undertaking any of the aforementioned activities.
I got to the before.
Oh, sorry.
In
Okay.
writing before.
Yeah, okay, so,
Aforementioned.
yeah, the director shall inform the members of the board in writing, prior to undertaking any of the aforementioned activities. And then that logically flows from that with the next sentence, that the determination, blah, blah.
Okay. And for clarification purposes on the 19D, in the event of such termination, the board shall pay the director as severance pay the full salary and benefits package enumerated within this contract from the actual date of termination established by the board until the end of contract term.
Yes.
So when you're looking at that, when it says benefits package, are we talking about the car payment, the annuity payments, the cell phone, the laptop, the life insurance, the health insurance? What's included in that?
Well, I can tell you that generally, a benefit package includes the, the stuff that's included in that leave section. So, in that section 13, that was what we were trying to clean up a minute ago.
Right.
To say that it's a vacation, personal leave, et cetera. If you wanted to be clearer, you could say benefit package excluding car allowance.
You could say just
Excluding items in number 11, 9/11. Thoughts?
Yeah.
Because it's just not clear. It just says benefit package, and so.
Yes, yes, I understand your concern. The only reason that I've got pause here is because in many circumstances, the health insurance benefit is continued on.
Okay.
It's not a have to, but that's a point of negotiation oftentimes that that health insurance people
Right.
would continue on. So, it's the board's prerogative.
Okay.
No, I thought it was a great
I
question.
think it's a valid question because that's
Oh,
a lot
yes.
of money.
No, because when
Sure.
I read it, my understanding was that it went to the vacation days, because that's
Yeah, that's what it
normally
is.
under,
That's where
normally
my
when
head
you're
went, but
employed,
that's a good
that's
point.
where you
Yeah,
go.
no, I think
If
it's-
you're not, but it's.
Absolutely. So you could say, let's see, benefit package excluding those, quote, other benefits, yeah, in quotes, set forth in numbered paragraph 11 above.
And what about 9?
Car allowance.
9 and 11. So,
Can you give me the wording on that again? I'm sorry.
yeah, hang on just one
Yeah,
second.
go ahead.
I'm doing this on the fly. Benefits. Okay, so, let's see, hang on just one second, because I got,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I'm going to read it out loud in a second.
Yeah.
Let me, but I have a run-on sentence here that's bugging me, sorry. I think I should move this over here. All right, so let's see what this sounds like to the body. In the event of such termination, the board shall pay to the director as severance pay the full salary and benefit package enumerated within this contract, comma, excluding those, quote, other benefits, and, quote, automobile and mileage allowances set forth in numbered paragraphs 11 and 9 above, comma, from the actual date of termination established by the board until the end of the contract term, right? Because without that, you've got this little sentence fragment here that has no meaning, and I think it does have meaning, because you wouldn't want it to be in perpetuity.
I didn't think so.
What, do you want me to
Want to read it again?
Yeah,
Read it one more time, I'm sorry. I can only write so fast.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
You're
know.
good.
I'm sorry about that. My mind's going really fast here. Okay, so in the event of such termination, comma, the board shall pay to the director, comma, this is all currently in there, as severance pay, comma,
Yes.
the full salary and benefit package enumerated within this contract, comma, and then here's the insert,
Right.
excluding those, quote, other benefits, quote, benefits and automobile and mileage allowances, that's in quotes,
Yes.
okay? Set forth in numbered paragraphs 11 and 9 above.
What about the insurance?
That's, the baby's out with the bathwater with that, unless the board were to carve out Section A.
And that would just be part of the negotiation, is what you said in the past. that-
Could be, or if the board intentionally wanted to leave that in now, they could leave it in.
Other benefits, B, C, and D.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
It's at the board's prerogative.
You got it? Anything else?
So just to make it clear, so I guess the board's not voting at this point because it's a work session, but anyway, at the time that somebody makes this motion to make this inclusion, there needs to be a concerted decision as to whether or not to leave in A or not in 11.
The wording in number 3, and
Yes.
this is just me being ticky, so please
Okay.
tell me you're being ticky and hush, that's fine. The third line down says will perform the duties of director in and for the public schools of Germantown. We have many public schools in Germantown, some of which are ours and some of which are not. I hate to be, I don't want to, do we need to be careful of the wording there? Not that anybody's going to come along from from one of the other public schools and say,
Yeah, I suspect Superintendent Hobson might take issue with that.
I think he might take a little issue,
A little
yeah.
levity there.
Just,
But
yeah.
I think
Do you
that
see
that's
that? I mean,
certainly
it's
in
just
order.
a-
Absolutely, yeah.
order of clarification.
Sure. So as to say, for the public schools of the Germantown Municipal School District.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so question, can that be considered housekeeping?
Would it be considered housekeeping?
Well, anytime there's a contractual change,
Okay.
I'm
We'll vote on it.
I think you should vote on it. I will say that, honestly, for an attorney to look at somebody else's work and not say, well, I changed that one and I changed that, you know, it's just, so I didn't try to take a pen to that. But
No, that's fine.
Okay,
That was
okay.
just stood out to me
Sure.
because of,
Understood.
for clarity.
Yep.
And then, under 18.
Yes.
It does say director's job description, as set forth from time to time in the adopted rules of the board, the powers and duties of the director, contractual expectations. And
Yes,
performance
you're right.
goals.
You're right. So will be based upon and then strike the director's job description as set forth from time to time in the adopted rules of the board. and then immediately go to the powers and duties of the director as described from time to time by state law. That's consistent.
So strike director's job description, is that what you're saying?
The director's job
These,
description
yeah.
as set forth from time to time in the adopted rules of the board.
So if we make the changes then to 6.
Right, then you have to make
then we
the
have
change to 18.
change to 18.
Yes.
Mhm. Which actually, you can put that in one motion.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
however, if we strike that whole phrase, then you've removed any input from the board to what the job of the director is.
No, you still
Yeah.
have policy.
As
Where is
set
that?
forth from time to time in
By
the
state
adopted
law.
rules of the board and the powers.
Contractual.
Oh, you're not.
Performance goals is.
Well,
in
the
there.
performance goals established by the director for each year is what the board input is.
What about policy? Because our policy sets forth what we expect of him.
The duties.
Our
that we have in
duties.
there.
The powers and duties of the director is described from time to time by state law, GMSD policy, yeah?
I think that's acceptable.
Okay. Contractual expectations and the performance goals established for the director
Each year.
for each year.
Okay. Other questions?
So right now we have, under acceptance, number 3, you have the change to Germantown Municipal School District.
Yes.
If the board wills. Number 6, a motion to change that involved with the job description.
Yes.
Which also falls into 18, to make that change.
Mhm.
And then number 16, the loyalty.
Yes.
Well, no, don't forget the one, yes, the loyalty.
Yes.
And then D,
Then 18, you did that, and then 19.
19.
Yes.
The
19D.
19D, and then 19, and the correction to 19F.
Which
Could
turns
be
into E. Yeah.
Yes, and could those be housekeeping, or is that something that you feel better about doing the motion?
On the Ds and the Es and the
Mhm.
19s,
Mhm.
I'm fine with doing,
That's
with making
Okay, that's
that,
what I
yeah.
thought, to make
Because
sure.
otherwise it
Right.
doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah, no, that's housekeeping, that's a typo.
The
Someone
language.
should have caught it.
so D and E we can have considered as housekeeping
Yes,
of 19.
yes.
Unless you change the
Well,
benefits.
Right, the other
Right.
benefits piece of the ND.
Okay. Other questions?
The only question I have is, we've talked about, I think going through and cleaning up a contract is always good matter of course. As we've seen, there are some things that need to be cleaned. What I have a question about, and I don't know if it's for you as an expert or who the expert is that we talk to about this, or if it's just within ourselves, is what is the benefit of an extension of the contract to the district? And, because a lot of all of these other changes could be made, maintaining the same language about the salary, maintaining the same language about the term, but cleaning all of these other things up to make it a tighter contract. So my question is, as a board, what is our rationale for extending the term? Because as we just talked about, there's a lot of money involved in that. And it's a 4-year contract. Just curious.
I don't think
how
that's
we-
an attorney question.
Okay.
Mhm.
I know it's, as far as the chair's perspective, I know it's not an unusual thing to extend a contract before the end of the contract. Just from asking around and asking,
I would agree, because typically it's always done before the end of the
It's a
contract.
contract,
Because you
yes.
have a year usually,
I
is
can
typically the
confirm- I can
standard, yes.
confirm that, sure.
Yeah.
I think it's more the 2 years as to where we are in this timing of it, as to why do we feel like now is the time to extend the term versus revisiting it a year from now.
I can give you my rationale.
Well, I would like to just talk, I hear that, I think And that's where the quandary is, in my opinion. That's kind of, I think I sent an email to this, is, you know, when you and your staff bring us contracts, we always have that expert, that person that's sitting there saying, this is in the best interest of the district, this is, you know, fiscally responsible, this is the investigation that we've done an RFP. I mean, there's a lot of facts behind it, but I think we as a board have to determine our perspective of what is that fiscally responsible position. And I think, I'm just curious how we get there.
What's your perspective on it?
From my perspective, I've never renegotiated a contract 2 years early. I mean, I've always waited, unless there's I've made changes, amendments. I've not seen that in the 2 years. So my perspective would be to say, clean it up. We're really not changing anything substantial in it, and maintain it for another year and have the conversation like we've typically had a year out.
Anyone want to add to that?
I think after the performance, the evaluation and the grade he got on it, I think it warrants 2 years, probably warrants a salary increase. But he didn't ask for that.
That's true. In negotiations, he did not ask for that. He did ask for the 2 years.
And I think in a negotiation, you usually have a negotiation. So I guess my question is, you know, when you look at these changes, going to the 60 days, eliminating the 15 days, and we can say, if, you know, what's, you know, they're right, enforceable, not enforceable. You know, I think in a negotiation, you typically have a give and a take. And again, just as our first responsibility is to the students in the district.
Right.
And it's the fiscal responsibility. And so I'm just trying to get comfortable with, at this time, when there's no need to do it.
I don't even think fiscal responsibility is our responsibility right now. I think our responsibility is to the students and to this district. And I think, and of course I know you and I have been deluged with emails. I've gotten hundreds of emails in support for Mr. Manuel, and I've gotten 22 in opposition for Mr. Manuel. And of those 22, they cite 3 things that have happened in the past. And you and I both know what those 3 things are.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I both know that those 3 things have been settled. But the public doesn't know that because we're not privileged to give them that information. So in my mind, I feel like Mr. Manuel deserves this. And I know in my heart, and I know being on this board and working as hard as he does, I know that well, you know how
I know, and I guess what I'm getting back is, this isn't an emotional decision. This isn't a...
Oh, it's a very emotional decision for me.
But as a board member, it shouldn't be. As a board member, it
every
should...
vote should be an emotional decision, as it is for you and it is for me.
Well, I think that's where we have to try and not be emotional about it, because at the end of the day, we're a district, and we have a responsibility from a board perspective to make the best fiscal decisions that we have.
For our students.
For our students. But what I would say is, whether we extend the contract or don't extend the contract 2 years into a 4-year contract, in my opinion, doesn't signal that there's a problem if we don't.
There is no problem.
So if we say we're not going to extend it, we're just going to wait a year and extend it on our normal course, because there's also the concern, are you setting precedent?
Why do we wait a year?
Why not?
Well,
Because
actually, we
it's
have
a-
set the precedent.
We set the precedent
We set
2
it when
years
we already
ago.
did the 2, and then I got the 2 year for that.
And in that conversation, the discussion was is that the reason we went for 4 years was that we didn't want to negotiate a contract in an election year. So the question I have is, if we're setting to go to a 4-year, because there were 2 things that were changed in that. There was one, we negotiated a 4-year, which had been a 3-year previously. And I don't necessarily know that it was, I could have sworn that we were in a 1 year away.
No,
Okay.
You were 2 years away.
it was the exact same time.
No,
Two or
it was
a year
a
and a
3.5
half?
year contract.
Yeah.
He had 18 months left on his contract. It was 18 months because the initial contract was engaged in January. And so this allowed for them to get to a June, July, which was July, the previous renewal of the contract.
Right.
So let's be accurate if we're going to be doing this. It was 18 months before the termination of the contract. And the reason of moving it was because of the oddity of engaging him in
time,
January.
yes.
Well, and so, as a board, I think we need to collectively be able to say why we think, from a business perspective, we ask these hard questions of our staff all the time about, is Durham the right contract? Is the painting contract the right contract? I mean, these are the questions we should ask, and we should have answers as to why would we want to
then-
extend a contract 2 years in. I'm just.
Then, I know, but then let's let everybody offer their answer.
Perfect.
I would like to know, hear from Mr. Ingram.
My answer is simply this. My staff needs stability. My teachers need stability. I am really hurt because I feel like we've lost a culture of kindness. Like, I don't know when it became acceptable to call out teachers and staff on Facebook, online, to mention names, to attack people. That's a concern for me. And so when I talk about the way my staff feels and my district office feels, they feel like we are constantly under attack. And we are looking to this board to say, and you did this with the strategic plan, when you looked at, and y'all all unanimously said, we have hit all the metrics in the strategic plan. We have done everything that you have asked us to do. And that is affecting students. That is direct student impact. And that's what I think is being missed in this. Because if we move to a place where my central office staff, my teachers, my employees don't feel safe, like this isn't a district to come to where you can work and serve children and be safe, that's the concern. And so when I look at the morale of this district and what we have to have, I think that this is important. Because once again, if you talk to anyone outside of the city of Germantown and you talk about how Germantown is performing and what we are doing, we are hitting the metrics, we are doing what we're supposed to do. So that would be my request when you say, why is this important now? Because my people need it. Not just me personally, my staff, my employees need it. So this is more about what can you do for the district and how can you impact children. If I have a teacher who's going to apply for a job and they're going to think, I don't know if Germantown's the place to go, there's instability there. That's the concern. That's why now. Because my people need it.
And did you have any follow-up?
No, I mean, I just think we need to look at his past performances for the past 4 years. I think you need to look at his current evaluation for the past year. And I think you need to look at, too, has this district followed all our policies and laws?
And I want to answer. As chairperson, we did have a discussion. We had a discussion about going for a 2-year extension. We had a discussion about a salary increase. He did not ask for a salary increase. He did not ask for a bonus. This is what he asked for. I did speak with Ms. Speakman about going over the contract because, as you can see, there were a lot of things that we needed to clean up in the contract. And then there was the question of the one where the attorney, Mr. Hagel, had suggested to the superintendent was not enforceable, possibly not enforceable. So in doing that, but we did have the conversation over this part of it. And I do believe it is not just a morale issue. I think it's a good business decision. I think it's a good business decision when you look at the overall district as a whole. When you look beyond one person's office and you look at this staff and you look at the teachers across the district, I do think it's a wise decision.
May I ask a couple questions?
Of course you can.
So, let's see how to phrase this. When you're looking at reviewing this contract, so it's been 4 years as a district, 3 contracts. Because the original contract, the renewed contract, and then if we pass this tonight, a 3rd contract. 4 years of district, 3 contracts. If we are establishing a review of the contract every 2 years as routine, let's say, would it not be more fiscally responsible of us to look at a 3-year contract? And that way, when we're reviewing his contract every 2 years, it's within 12 months of
And it's not
determination.
an election
And
year.
it's not an election year. The other thing to consider is if we were to make that change, when you're looking, and I do not anticipate us ever, I'm going to start with this. This is like a prenuptial agreement. You get married and you love each other and all of that. So, okay, the severance package, that also reduces the fiscal responsibility of the district in the severance package to that 3-year as opposed to a 4-year. But again, it sets up that, yes, this is something we are going to do every 2 years, and that provides some stability. Because again, the board in the future says, yes, this is typically every 2 years we evaluate, we reevaluate, we renegotiate.
And that's
in an
not,
off year.
And it's, yes.
yeah, and it's not an election year, it's
Right.
an off year.
That's my concern, too, is election year.
Yes.
What difference does it make? What kind of
Well-
year? Maybe it's the year of the mouse, you
Well,
know?
that was, only
I
if it's
don't know what
Mickey.
year it is.
Well, I understand what Ms. Oak is saying.
But again, you're,
Because that's
I'm
why the
fine.
board originally,
right.
Went to 4.
Went to
Went-
4 was to eliminate that influence.
I had to run 1 year, then the next year, and then
I
the next
know.
2 years.
That judge didn't do you right.
I'm not complaining about it.
I'm not saying there's any, I'm not the one having to run this year. I'm trying to look forward, because we have to
Understand.
look
For
at
all
this
of our future
contract
boards.
for the future boards that are going to come, because we will
which you
have a
have
new
to
board.
do. We have to look at a bigger picture.
You
Yes.
can do that after we vote on this tonight. I mean, I'm happy with that.
As a matter of just information. We did learn at TSBA Law School that other districts, the laugh on law school, I enjoyed law school. School law, not law school.
Yeah, that's right.
School law. After a day, 8 hours of studying school law, you feel like you've been to law school. You know, you've both done it. In talking to other districts do renew. In fact, there is a district in our area that renews on an annual basis for 4 years, which is odd, granted, but it is what is done. I don't know what Arlington does.
4-year contract, but they've renewed periodically within that 4 years, as I think almost all the municipalities have. But let me say, just food for thought here in terms of this. Number one, in the contract, you have a provision right now that says if the board elects not to renegotiate an employment contract with the director at the end of this contract term, the board shall provide notice of its decision 180 days prior to the expiration date of this contract.
Where's
So,
this?
I'm so
Two.
sorry, it's in paragraph 2,
Two.
so that's in there. So I guess you have to back that up if you're going into 3. The only other thing I would say is that,
But that would be covered if you're doing it within a year, right? Like if you say you're going to do it every 2 years and you have a 3-year contract, that 180 would be,
It would be double that.
yep,
Yeah.
but and so you're having to make that affirmation earlier.
What do you mean?
I mean, into 3 years instead of into 4 years. So you're making an affirmation about 180 days. I just call that to your attention to
Okay,
know
right,
that that's
yeah.
how much notice you have to have.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would say is, and frankly, I am not of the opinion that this, a decision to negotiate a contract now sets a precedent for negotiating a contract as a legal matter at all. Now, whether or not, just as a personal matter, maybe, but not as a legal matter. The only other thing I would say is that if you were to try to negotiate a contract with, say, somebody else at some point, really hot commodities would not be very interested in a 3-year contract. They would want a 4-year agreement because, superintendent positions are hard. It's sort of like a professional football coach, they're not going to be okay with just a year or two
Yeah,
or
if you don't
three,
Right, but
whatever.
you're also, if you're
That's
bringing
not-
someone new in, you're asking them probably to move and to come into the district, and so you need to.
There are a
give them-
litany of reasons
right.
that, yeah.
I
that-
can see that, but
yeah.
after that period, I think it needs to become, you do have to ask the question of yourself, what kind of financial liability are we putting on our district if we're going to establish whether or not we are, but the 2-year review process.
I don't disagree with the logic, let me make clear. I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure that,
Okay.
you guys kind of see what I see as the
Right.
big picture
The big
of
picture.
superintendents in the world, so to speak.
We made Mr. Manuel move a mile into the city limits when we hired him, because he lived
Yes,
in,
he lived in Carnival.
that was a financial burden on him at that time.
I think you just need to keep in mind, again, past performance, evaluation, has he followed our policies and law? And this is something he's asking the board, as you say, it's a negotiation. Is this something you want to give him?
Okay, are there any questions? Because it is now a few minutes after 6 and you do have an agenda. Okay, is there anything else on this? Okay, next up is Mr. Hadow, our HR update for new hires for 2018-19. Good evening, Mr. Hadow.
This is really kind of, good evening, everyone. This is really hot off the press. We made some most recent hires. I think we just hired someone,
Oh,
a new
wow.
assistant principal, probably about 3 hours ago. That is really the format that I'm following from here on out, probably all the way through September, when it's hot, heavy with the hiring season. If you look at it, and just to give you an overview, district office, there have been 2 new hires, so to speak. If you look at Dogwood, 4 new hires, and on down, Farmington, 2 new hires. Before you turn it over, the highlighted names in yellow are the people that they have replaced. And I'm able, just on that first one, on the sidebar, we did not hire her position, if you recall. She was an instructional supervisor last year. That's what that means. So that's not really, she's now the vice principal at Houston High School. But as you look at it, the other thing that I know that may be of consideration, and it may be out of my own bias, is what level of education do they have? I know that's been a point of contention in the district. And also years of experience, and there's pros and cons to both. And then the other point is that I tried to actually, Ms. Stratton and myself, is diversity. Where are we with all those issues? Because I think those are some of our guiding principles. So hopefully you see that at the very end, and now I'm on page 2 of the back. There have been some internal placement changes. Do not panic with that. These people were with us last year. I just wanted to give you a brief update of some of the changes. For instance, Sarah Schmidt's a wonderful guidance counselor, actually a school counselor at Houston High School. She is, Ms. Little did retire. She's taken the role of that. So that would be an example of that, of what's going on. We do have some positions that's really active right now, and on any given day there are some changes based on resignations and late retirements. Do note this, July 1, we do honor a 30-day out, and usually that pool of applicants gets more and more narrower because we want people to honor their current contract with other municipalities or Shelby County schools or other local public school systems. So we are really busy trying to fill some of these positions. My own philosophy is take care of the classroom first with teachers. So there may be some movement with upper management, if you will, positions that we try to fill first, then the classroom, and then the support people. So we're kind of moving through that rapidly and quickly. So hopefully that helps you.
It does, very much.
Come August, September, you'll see more detail.
It's great. Thank you, Mr. Hutto.
You're welcome.
Ms. Huffman? Approval of the FY 18-19 consolidated funding application.
This will take 5 seconds. It's just gaining your approval, saying that you approve the federal budget. So Dr. Parks, title programs, and then IDEA. That's it. Any questions?
Questions? Thanks, Ms. Huffman. The Apple Master Lease Agreement. Mr. Pierce? Mr. Jones?
Mr. Pierce is on vacation, so filling in. We're asking for your approval to buy out a master lease agreement with Apple Incorporated for devices. The lease was entered into with Apple with the district back in June of 2015. It was a 3-year lease from July 2015 to June 30, 2018. So the fair market value of the buyout is $115,000, which, talking with Mr. Pierce, he felt that was reasonable.
And this is a part of us moving towards the purchase
Purchase.
versus
Originally, we were looking at
leasing.
leasing devices.
Right.
And was that cost anticipated in that analysis for our budget, or is this,
No, it was unexpected.
okay. So do we know where
Where the
this
funds are
might?
coming
Yeah,
from?
we transferred from salary line items
Okay,
That we're
and
not-
fringe benefits
Okay.
and made a budget transfer into
okay.
the equipment line item.
Any questions?
And
That was it?
Is that it, Mr. Jones?
I have a hair mark.
Oh,
You can
well,
stay up
do
here.
you want to stay up
Do
here?
the earmark.
Just do your
We'll
mark.
we'll ask Mr. Cathy to wait a minute. Thank you, Mr. Cathy.
All right, you have amendment number 3 with Aramark in the district for the next school year. This will be the last amendment of their original contract. Next spring, we will go out to bid for these services, but there is a 2.1% increase in their management fee, some small price increases in lunch and breakfast prices. And comparing those to some of the other school districts, we're in line. Actually, in some cases, we are lesser for the 18-19 school year as opposed to what some school districts are charging in the 17-18 school year.
And we didn't have a management fee increase last year that I remember.
Yeah,
Did we? Every year.
we've had every year.
So,
So basically, a cost of living
yeah,
adjustment.
every year.
Any questions?
And I guess I'll make sure, and if there is a loss, it will come out of their management contract?
Yes.
Right, there's a guarantee of almost $17,000. So if they were to only make $17,000 or $10,000 for the year, they would cut us a check for the difference for $7,000.
Very nice. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Jones. Mr. Cathy?
And this year, we did break even, Mr. Jones?
Yeah, looking at a fund balance actually of around $60,000.
That's great.
Very good.
Very good.
Yay. Only took 3 years.
Good evening. This is the interlocal agreement for students' transportation, and this is our shared services transportation group over in Carterville that still does routing, assists with numerous transportation issues. It has been reviewed by multiple legal counsels, and it is noteworthy. The biggest concern that the administration had was getting the penalty language out of there. In section, I believe,
That was my
13,
question.
it explicitly says that the penalty language no longer applies to Germantown or Carterville. So I will be happy to answer any questions about this agreement you may have.
Are we using the same software, or are we changing?
We are
something?
VersaTrans. We are using the same software.
I was just glad to see that out of the clause, the penalty And we are free and clear, right? We've paid our.
We're done with that, yes.
Okay, any other questions on this contract? Okay, thank you, Mr. Kathy, very much. And we are at further business.
I might just ask real quick, do you have an update on school safety at all? I know we were waiting for architects to get back to us.
And I can hit that if you'd like.
Yes.
Yeah, we do have a proposal that we've accepted from Allen Hoschel. They're one of the architecture and engineering firms that responds to our RFQ. So we do have them under contract to look at 3 specific things at Houston High School. The front entrance, putting in fencing between the A building and the main building to make that a secure space, and also fencing in the courtyard area, which is between the cafeteria and the library, where a lot of students go outdoors to eat lunch. It's the breezeway. Again, that's an open space that students, it'd be very similar to the Riverdale courtyard. So that is underway. I just got a proposal today to add the alarm systems, to do some upgrades to our alarms, but also to add the audible alarm that we spoke about if a door's been propped open longer than a time period, because that can kill a whole security plan, just a propped open door. So I actually just got the proposal today for that. Mr. Bland and Mr. Pierce have been working on finalizing the camera proposal, so we're moving down the road there. So that's the progress as it comes to mind. I don't know if there's any that I missed.
The city made a recommendation at their last BMA meeting and at the FAC meeting to transfer. Originally, we had talked about 1.5 in this fiscal year for the Riverdale boiler chiller, and another 1.5 in the next fiscal year, because projects always happen in the summertime, in June and July. And so what they recommended was, and they actually approved in their first step, to take $500,000 and put that towards security, our immediate needs right now, which was listed in our plan. Go ahead and budget in this fiscal year $1 million for the Riverdale boiler and chiller, and then have 1.5 in that next fiscal year. So what will happen is, if we go to bid and it's over the 2.5, which we think it's going to be close to 3 million, then a request was to come back to the city in that next fiscal year to ask for that additional funding. So they were trying to be responsive to what our board said as far as security needs in the district.
Good, that's great.
Thank you, Mr. Kathy.
Further business.
One thing I have is a request on the agenda. I know that, with the superintendent's contract, having it at the very top of the agenda is important. But I also know that, to Mrs. Parker's comment, is that there's been a lot of voicing of opinion and thoughts from our citizens. And I think before we vote on it, it would be good to hear from our citizens, so that I was wondering if we could make an amendment or make a change to the agenda, just to move citizens to be heard right before.
I can answer that, because I too would love to be able to hear from the citizens and give them the opportunity. But unfortunately, state law requires it to be first on the agenda.
Right. But we have approval of the agenda before.
But
I
no,
thought the
state law requires
I thought the
it.
law that I read said that it was recommended that it be at the beginning of the agenda, that it wasn't required that it had to be absolutely the first thing. So I just thought that there could be some leeway in the fact that we could maybe just move citizens to be heard just up to that, and still be within the realms of the law.
Madam Attorney?
Tennessee Code Annotated 49-2-203 provides that the proposed action shall be published as a specific, clearly stated item on the agenda for the meeting. Such item, for the convenience of the public attending the meeting, shall be the first item on the agenda.
So I didn't know any other way to interpret that.
I'm not aware of any case authority that, where anyone is challenged it. So I can't rely on
And what
it.
does it say after the first item on the agenda?
That's
That's
it.
actually
It
what
goes
it
on
is.
into the next section, section 15, about policies of substitute teachers is the following section, item 15.
There's a lot more preceding those two sentences in the code.
So maybe that was just an interpretation that I had read, because what I said was, such item for the convenience of the public attending the meeting shall be the first item. So I read the convenience, meaning that you could potentially, that the law was that it was clearly stated, and that you could potentially put the citizens to be heard before that.
I think I think that could be a proper interpretation had the word following meeting not been shall, and would have been may.
Okay.
Gotcha, love those words. May and shall. No, I'm in full agreement. I would love nothing better. And in building this agenda, because it had to be published 15 days in advance, again, in accordance with Tennessee code, I would very much have loved to have had the public be able to weigh in.
Well, and I think that this could be something that could be a learning for us from a timing perspective, because I think we have quite a few changes to the contract that we're going to have to go through for the amendment, that to really get strict about if we're reviewing a contract, we review it in a work session and then we can approve it the next meeting, because then our citizens would have that ability to speak at the meeting before we would vote on it. And so we could hear from that, because it would be a part of the work session discussion. It would be out there for the public to hear. So I just think that if we could get,
I don't disagree.
ahead of that, well, I mean, and I don't know what it would take to do that, but it would be great to maybe start thinking about these contracts as they come up, to really make sure that now that we've said that we might be on a routine, that we say that this is going to be the routine. Because it's unfortunate.
You live and learn. Is there anything else?
Just hope everybody stays.
Okay, if there is nothing else to come before us at the work session, we will stand adjourned. Oh my gosh,
10 minutes, yeah.
yes. We will begin our meeting promptly at 6:30.
Thank you. Perfect.
Can we please come to order? I don't have a gavel. Oh, I've already got. There. Good evening. The chair would like to call the meeting to order, please. If you would all please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And if you would all please join us in standing, and I will ask Ms. Parker to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. During our work session, the board had a discussion on the placement of the consideration of the superintendent's contract as the next order of business after the approval of the agenda. At the time, our attorney, Ms. Speakman, made the comment that there was no case authority to actually determine where on the agenda that should be placed. So I have, in the interim, asked Ms. Speakman to speak on if there was any other way that we could possibly interpret Tennessee code that affects this decision.
I don't see how that we can get around the phrase "shall be the first item on the agenda." However, there is no case authority on the issue, and it seems to me at least to be logical that one could interpret the statute to have intended could have intended that the law could be construed to say be the first voting item on the agenda. And by making that interpretation, you could in fact have, oh my gosh, there's so many. You could, in fact, have the citizens' comments and all other comments, all other agenda items prior to the consent agenda to be heard prior to the superintendent's contract, which would then, in fact, be the first voting item. And I feel comfortable I could make a straight-faced argument that that's the intended interpretation.
Thank you. And if the board so concurs, the chair would like to move the consideration of the renewal of the superintendent's comment to make to a new number 9 prior to the consent agenda, thus making it prior to any voting to be done. Is there any objection by the members of the board? Seeing no objection, we will amend the agenda accordingly. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion?
Chairman, I'm sorry I did not bring this up in the work session. I had intended to. One of the policies in the consent agenda regarding, I'm sorry, give me just a second, I'll have the number for you. Policy IP 4.203.1. I would like that removed from the consent agenda, please.
In place on the regular voting agenda?
On the board action items, please.
I know it's.
I'm sorry, did I say the wrong number? No, the second reading, the honors and AP, the second reading.
Then we will make that consideration 10E? 10E.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, roll call, please, Ms. Subramani.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Abstain.
Chairman Landers,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Thank you.
The agenda has been approved. Next order of business will be recognitions and awards. There are none? That's always sad. That's my favorite part. It's summertime. So we will move on to reports. Ms. Jones, the TLN update, please.
Yes. And it is summertime in Nashville, so it's a little light. But one thing that did come out last Thursday, June 14th, the Commissioner of Education announced several new steps to improve the state's TN Ready student assessment. The steps being taken to improve TN Ready include releasing a new RFP to identify the assessment vendor or vendors that can successfully administer the state test in 2019-2020, amending the state's current contract and relationship with Questar to improve the assessment experience in 2018-19, and also adjusting the pace of the state's transition to online testing. Additional actions that were already in the works to help with the TN Ready load is eliminating 2 of the TN Ready end-of-course exams that I mentioned last meeting, and eliminating the March standalone field test over the next 2 years, as well as they are bringing in a third party to perform an independent review of Questar's technology capabilities. So hopefully this is a good lead-in to what we should expect in the upcoming year of their focus. And lastly, again, the summer is a significant time of campaigning. There's a lot going on this summer for primaries and then into the election for November. So there's not a lot of talk on the Hill right now about changes, but in the fall, I believe that there will be, and we will keep engaged with our legislators and bring potential legislation back to the board.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Out of consideration for the essence of time this evening, there'll be no chairman's report this month. Next order would be financial report. Mr. Jones.
Okay, you have your financial reports for the month ending May 31, 2018. First on the balance sheet, reporting total assets, liabilities, and fund balance in the school operating fund of $18.2 million. In the Federal Projects Fund, reimbursements due from the Tennessee Department of Education right at $500,000. Cash or total assets, liabilities, and fund balance in the Cafeteria Fund at $236,000. $1.7 million in the Capital Projects Fund, and roughly $2.5 million in the Health Insurance Fund, and approximately $2.3 million in the OPEB Trust Fund. In the General Fixed Asset Account Group, plant, property, and equipment totaling right at $71.5 million. On your statement of revenues and expenses or expenditures, in the School Operating Fund, a reminder that there's no BEP payment received in May. Sales tax revenues are projected for the year at $6.6 million, which is up $200,000 over last year. GMSD paid the city $296,000 for a technology loan payment and $142,000 for GMSD's share of its bond payment. The Cafeteria Fund projected increase in fund balance is at $60,000 at year end after district expenditures. And in the OPEB Trust and Health Insurance Funds, the OPEB Trust reimbursed the Health Insurance Fund $124,000 for 6 months of retiree claims. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I just would like to thank Mr. Jones for all his work, and also to let everybody know that when we started our school district, we were $300,000 deficit in our cafeteria because of reduced because of free and reduced lunch students. And this year, as he just said, we were $60,000 ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Next order of business will be the superintendent's report. Mr. Manuel?
I'm waiting for the PowerPoint to come up.
Ms. Crowder?
So I think it's important to share that we had a board retreat on Friday before last, and it was very beneficial because I think one of the most important roles of the school board is to really determine the way the district is going to function and set that vision for us and set metrics that we try to achieve. And so I won't go through the whole report that we did on that day, but I do have an abbreviated report because I do think it's important to highlight the fact that these aren't just accomplishments of the central office or the superintendent. It is the teachers, it's our paraprofessionals, it's all of our staff in our schools that are working every single day to try to hit these metrics for the district. So no, this is something that we should be proud of because we started out as a district with a very large burden on our back, and that is that we were a really good district. The challenge for us is to move from that good to great district, and how do we do that? And we have very aggressive metrics in our strategic plan to try to continue to keep those high levels of achievement, and I think you'll see that it has been a phenomenal success of what our district has accomplished over the past 3 years. So I'd like to go through some of those highlights in our strategic plan. First goal that our board has is maximizing student potential, and they've set some very specific metrics. The first is a lot more rigorous than what the state uses for ACT. These are a number of students who are hitting all 4 metrics on the ACT. That means they're college ready in all 4 areas, in the English, math, reading, the science, and the social studies portion, or the language arts portion. So for us, we started out in 2015-16, that was our first year with the strategic plan, having a 44% of our students hitting all 4 metrics on that ACT. The school board set a goal of us increasing by 2% every single year in that metric, and realized that the ACT isn't something that our high school should just celebrate our successes with. This is something that all of our teachers have played a role in. This is a cumulative assessment of students to see what have they mastered over their entire career as a student. And so we moved from 44% in 2015-16 to 49.7% of our students hitting that metric. This past year, we had another phenomenal jump where it jumped up to 56.7% of our students hitting all 4 metrics. And that includes all of our student body, those with special needs, those who have learning difficulties. So know that this is an incredible achievement for us. The state uses a less rigorous model for us, and that's the number of students who are scoring over a 21 on the ACT, and that's the benchmark to see that they're going to be successful in college. When you look at that metric, how many of our students are scoring over a 21, and know for our parents, this is also special because this is real scholarship money for them because they qualify for the HOPE scholarship by hitting this metric. So in 2015-16, we were at 74.4%. We moved to 80.5%. This past year, we moved to 83.1% of our students who are hitting that metric. That's an incredible accomplishment for the district, and that's much more successful than what our objective was. Now, when we look at the percentage of students who graduate, this is something that is a struggle for the district. Know that special needs students count against us. So if those students are graduating, and we're talking about functional skills students who may have severe learning disabilities, that if you have a large cohort of those students who are graduating, it'll have an impact. So know that this number fluctuates year after year. With us, 92.8% was our score last year. We were at 94.4%. We had a large cohort last year who graduated. But this is also any student who enrolls in the district over their 4 years that cohort is moving through. So a student may come for a couple of years and then move to an international school or move out of state. The challenge for us with this metric is its documentation. It's getting the right forms back from those districts that they move to remove them from our cohort list, because otherwise those students count against us. And you'll see that on that list too. But know that when we look at maximizing student potential, we are having an astounding success. Next, let's look at our board-established indicators for Tennessee Ready. No, this isn't our fault that this isn't happening this year. Know that there were issues with the state's testing, and so we do not have those scores for those indicators. But I think what's more important is to look at our STAR literacy. we have an incredible elementary school program in our schools when we look at the reading programs for our kindergarten and our first grade students. So in 2015, 2016, you can see that gray number there, 81.6% of our students in kindergarten were reading at or grade level, and this is across all students. Know that when that cohort of students moved to first grade in 16-17, that same group of students was at 97.2% reading at or above grade level. That is phenomenal, especially compared to all the scores across the state of Tennessee. If you look at 16-17, 83.7% of our kindergartners were reading. So we saw an increase in those kindergarten students, and it moved to 90.1 in 17-18. But the same cohort of students that were at 83.7% in kindergarten were at 97.4% once they were moving to first grade. So know that we are seeing incredible success, and our teachers are working hard, our staff are working hard to achieve these results. When we look at maximizing student potential, there was also an indicator talking about having programs for our students, because we want them to be good citizens. We don't just want it to be about academics. So know that community service was a part of this, and so know that there were 3,376 hours reported for our elementary and middle schools, over 39 different opportunities for our students. Our high school students, 60% of our high school students will participate in community service. We had almost 6,000 hours of community service accomplished at our high school level, and over 32 different opportunities at the high school. So know that, and you can see all of this online. There were multiple pages, those are those white pages at the bottom, of how many different community service projects our students are doing and completing, because it's not just about the academics, it's about the whole child here. When we look at maximizing student potential, and we also look at another indicator for our board, the percentage of students who've been recognized for sports, fine arts at national, state, regional, or district level competitions, not only are they participating in extracurricular activities, but they're also succeeding at those activities. Once again, we had over 780 students participating at Dogwood, 653 at Farmington, Riverdale had over 1,400, Houston Middle had over 1,800, Houston High School had over 4700. That means students are doing multiple activities. They're not just in one activity. And know that of those who are completing that, and we look at those opportunities there, there's a wide range of choices for students, whether it's in fine arts, whether it's in athletics, there's lots of different choices. And once again, there's multiple pages on the webpage. You can see all the different opportunities we offered students. Now, they're not just participating, they are also succeeding in these opportunities. When we look at the students that are winning state, national, local championships, this list that's scrolling at the bottom is our list from this past school year. You can see this on the website. And this is a testament to our sponsors, to our programs in our school. There are lots of districts that may have 2, 3 state championships in their entire history. It's become commonplace for us that we're seeing that in one season at our high school. So know that when we look at athletics, over 1,292 students received some award or recognition. Not only were they participating, they were winning at something. Fine arts too, and we had a busy spring where we were recognizing all the All-West people in choir, in orchestra, in theater. Know that those students in fine arts are also succeeding. And then also, students are competing academically. So if we're talking about foreign language exams, if we're talking about math exams where they're going and competing against other students in the city, know that over 913 students in our district won programs where they were competing academically with other students or extracurricularly. So know you can go see this list. We won't have to read through all of these opportunities. When we look at also in Goal 1 and we look at maximizing student potential, one of the things that we talk about is mentoring students. How are we developing programs in our schools that really mentor? So last year we really highlighted the DOT program that they were doing at the high school. They had a list of students where all the teachers were coming by and putting a sticker by students that they felt like they had a close relationship with, that they were really helping mentor. So no, that was the highlight. This year, based on our goal for all students to have mentors, they implemented a new program at Houston Middle School. And this really came from Ron Clark Academy, where they were talking about how can you have that relationship between students across grade levels and also with adults in the school. And so they started the house system that you see there at Houston Middle School. And if any of you are Harry Potter fans, it works like the houses in Harry Potter, where you had Gryffindor and Hufflepuff, where they have Mondays where they will meet with different grade levels and with teachers in that classroom. The goal for that time with those students and that teacher is to really develop that relationship with an adult mentor in the school. So no, that's an exceptional program, but you can see all the programs that all of our schools have done around mentoring. When we look at recruiting, developing, and retaining exemplary staff, know that we do have very successful teachers in our district. Over 96% of our teachers this past year scored a 4 or 5 on overall effectiveness. If we had our Tennessee Ready results, usually that pushes our scores even higher because our students are achieving at those levels. So know that we've stayed consistently at 97, 96%. The rest of the indicators that you see throughout this came from the Tennessee Teacher Survey. So know that when we look at the percentage of our teachers that feel they're being recognized fairly through the evaluation system was at 92.8%. The ones that are recognized for professional development was at 81%. Other indicators for recruiting, developing, and retaining exemplary staff, teachers that feel that they have adequate individual planning time was at 67%. This is a challenge for us, collaborative planning time, specifically at the high school, because you have courses that are offered all during periods of the day, so it's very difficult with scheduling to get all the math teachers off at the same time or all the science teachers so they can have that collaborative planning time. But no, that is something that we are trying to work with the high school. That's one of the reasons that they had the late start times where they were having PLC time for teachers in the same content area where they could get together. When we look at teachers that feel satisfied in their work at 84%, teachers that feel they're appreciated in their work at 84%, we've seen increases in how we're achieving for our staff. Other goals, and some of these are board actions that we're very excited that they played a role in. Having opportunities for teachers to take a leadership role and step into a differentiated pay position so that those teachers who can receive extra pay, but also they can develop as a leader in the school district. But also something that we're very proud of for our staff is that there is a 2% cost of living adjustment for all staff across the district. And for many staff, they're also going to see a 4% increase overall because they're going to have a step when we look at our years of service, they get paid for every year of service that they have, and they're also going to see that increase. So know that we are doing great things around pay for our staff. And before we move on to the next one, I do think it's important to say that when we talk about our health insurance plan, we have had 4 years where we haven't had an increase in the cost to our employees on health insurance. That does not mirror what's happening nationally. That does not mirror what's happening in other districts. There's nothing more upsetting for a teacher when you hear you're getting a cost of living adjustment and then your insurance goes up more than that cost of living adjustment was. So no, that's something very special for us, is that we have been very frugal with that account, and that also takes a teamwork effort. When we talk about what Ms. Edelman does, what Ms. Stratton does, what Ms. Pritchard does in our human resource offices, and Mr. Haddo, to really educate our staff on using generic drugs, to not go to the emergency room unless they have to. Know that that's a group effort to make sure that we're keeping those costs low with health insurance. So when we look at Goal 3, mobilizing community engagement for our system's benefit, if we look at our increases in Twitter followers, Twitter impressions, our Facebook likes, the organic reach average views per post at 1,700 for 17-18. We have a new system, Skylert, that goes with our Skyward program. We had over 396 communication efforts through our Skylert rapid notification system. When we look at the Skyward family access logins, we had almost 300,000 families log in to monitor their students' grades. That's instant access, so you can really track how your student's doing. And know that at the end of the year, we added a new program, which is the Durham Bus Tracker, so that as buses are going through the neighborhood and it may be 5 or 6 minutes late, you can know where your bus is in real time. So know that the Durham Bus Tracker was a good addition for us. And then mobilizing community engagement for the system's benefit. Know that this is also work that we have done throughout the district. So know that we had over 75 programs or opportunities offered. You can see it scrolling there in the bottom right to community to either serve on forums or task force to help us when we're looking at issues like zoning or site development or site selection or building development. Know that we tried to engage the community with multiple opportunities. But know that our teachers are doing that same activity. We had over 193 reported speakers in the class where they're coming in to talk about a profession or really add enrichment to what the teachers are doing in the classroom. And we will look at volunteers, once again, that are coming into the classroom to read or work with students. We had over 1,800 reports of volunteers that are coming in to work with our students. So no, that's part of our success of our district too, is that our parents, our community are coming out to really help our students grow. The last goal is to establish 21st century schools. Know that it has been a big undertaking for this district to move to a one-to-one environment. I think that's something that we don't want to take for granted, that every student in grades 6 through 12 is going to have a device. That took increases in the infrastructure that we have in our schools, the bandwidth, looking at where those ports are in all of our schools. And this next year, we will move to over close to 8,000 devices throughout our school for the one-to-one initiative. So know that that also required Mr. Pierce to really look at how are we monitoring students. So we implemented Gaggle and cloud-based monitoring to really track what students are doing on their devices, whether it's in the Microsoft Office suite or whether it's through their emails, and know that that's been a significant improvement for the district. And finally, know that we have invested over $53 million in capital improvements in the district to date. So know that we are making dramatic changes in what's happening at our facilities, and know that it is our expectation that we will have even more. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Bland. I think one of the concerns that we have that we share with the community was at the last board meeting that people came forward with concerns about bullying in our district. And I want you to know that myself included and all the staff in the schools, we do this job because we want to serve children. We want the best for children. And so for us, we have started a huge initiative for us, for the district, to make sure that we are addressing those concerns. And know that we have our administrative staff here today. We have representatives from our schools here today. We don't want any child to be bullied. But know that Mr. Bland's going to talk about programs that we have to try to really educate our parents, our students, all of our staff on bullying.
So we'll begin with what have we done throughout the school year and in past years, and then we'll move forward with next steps.
Okay, I'm just going to highlight some things that we have done recently in this past year. We've got some training. We've training. Miss Chrissy Law has attended bullying, harassment, and intimidation training that was hosted by the Tennessee Department of Education. Our counselors are also trained annually concerning bullying, the effects and warning signs for students. Our Student Services Department attended Conditions for Learning training in the fall to gain knowledge and get information on how to meet the needs of the whole child. We also implemented the Above the Line bullying program in grades K through 8. We also have implementation of anonymous alerts. This is a tool that we've used to combat bullying. This allows parents and students to make reports on anonymous alerts, and it also allows administration to look and investigate these concerns. Another thing that we have is the bullying information session. Most recently, this was presented on May 30th at Houston Middle. This allowed parents and stakeholders the opportunity to discuss bullying and bullying prevention. District office and parents were able to have a conversation just basically regarding bullying and ways to strengthen our community and communication and parental engagement around bullying. Also, Ms. Law requested Captain Lynn Edwards to present a parent session on bullying support and prevention, and this was at Riverdale on November 15th. On April 19th, we also had, during the Dogwood Parent Academy, Ms. Law presented on bullying for parents. And lastly, we've also created, recently, we've assembled a task force to help address bullying needs, and I think Mr. Bland's going to talk about that.
So next steps for the district. The bullying task force, we plan to meet several times throughout the year. We have parents on the task force, faculty, and district level administrators. We're going to talk about what's going on in the community, what's going on in schools, and come together to bring you guys something. If we need to change some things, we'll change things. I can tell you that our bullying policy and procedures, we do follow the state recommended policy for bullying, harassment, and intimidation. But we want to use this task force to hear what parents are hearing at home and to see what students are saying to their parents, and so that we can provide whatever we need to provide for all students. When school starts next year, we will, the students will take a survey to see, we want to know what they know about bullying and how it affects them, and do they recognize the difference between bullying and conflict. We need to educate everybody, students, parents, faculty, staff, and part of that education will come during in-service. We have secured the STARS program. Roger Dinwiddie is the CEO of STARS. They're based out of Nashville, and they're going to provide training to staff and support for students to help them break through emotional barriers that they may have. Because when you talk about bullying, there are several people that are affected. The bully, the person that's being bullied, bystanders that may see it. So we're going to try to touch everybody involved starting in the fall. And we also have additional training will come to all faculty and staff. They're going to come in, they're going to talk to administrators, counselors, just a select group that we identify that will need some additional training, along with the entire district. So district learning during the in-service week, we will have a session dedicated to bullying awareness, prevention, and strategies to combat that. And for the students, we have secured a company. It's called Box Out Bullying. They're based out of Pennsylvania. They're known nationally and internationally for the work that they do with bullying. They provide seminars that are age appropriate, and they educate students about bullying and how to deal with the effects of bullying. So we do have things that are planned. You will see these things put into place when the students come back. Once they come back, we'll start to put some touches in. But before they come back, the task force, we plan to meet mid-July to start getting ideas together and getting input that we can present to you guys. And I think while I'm here, it's important to note that during the 4 years that we've been in operation, we've had less than 100 reports of bullying. So when we talk about bullying, we really need to, two things: the education piece, so that we can identify what is truly bullying and what is normal peer conflict. That's part of the education piece. The next thing, we have to urge parents, students, faculty, and staff, if you see bullying, please report it. Sometimes it's not reported, and it's not reported for a variety of reasons. But we can't do anything about it if it's not reported and we don't know about it. If you report it to teachers, you don't see anything done, take it to the next level. Contact school administrators. Parents, contact your school administrators. If they don't do anything about it, contact my office. I will have my information available on every school's website here in the next day or so. But contact myself. We can look into it and assist the school and do anything that we can to keep kids safe while they're in schools. Thank you.
And so I would like to reiterate what Mr. Bland and his team are trying to do. We want parents to be engaged with us if they are concerned that there's an issue for us. That's our goal for having that task force. That's also our goal for bringing in the 2 national organizations. We are bringing in the state trainer to work with our staff, our administration, our teachers. And that's also our goal for the mentoring programs that we have in the school. We don't want any child to be bullied, but what I think is a good question also is, what is the district doing once we get notified that someone is bullying? Are our counselors involved? Are our teachers involved? Is the administration involved? I think those are important questions for us to talk about, how we're really serving students. Because like I said, at the end of the day, we are all doing this and we all got into this business because we care about children and we want to do right by them. And so the goal for this task force moving forward, working with the parents, is that if they feel like the box out bullying or the training that we've received from Mr. Dimwitty and his organization isn't the right path for the district, they're going to provide real feedback for us on the programs that we have. Is there a better solution out there for us? Do we need to incorporate a different type of training into our MAPS programs? Those are all going to be things that our task force is looking at and making recommendations, and we'll bring those back to our school board. And with that, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Superintendent Manuel. Next item on the agenda is citizens to be heard. If you have not turned in your form requesting to be heard before the board, please do so to the secretary at this time. Before we begin, the chair would like your indulgence. Our last meeting was a difficult one for everyone. It was heart-wrenching, and I think I speak on behalf of the entire board by telling you it did not go unnoticed by any of us. Several of us took the opportunity to go into the district office, to sit down with Mr. Bland, to ask pertinent questions, to become better acquainted with anonymous alerts, but most of all, to follow up on the concerns that you shared with us, to make sure that your voice was being heard. As you can see by Mr. Bland's report this evening and the superintendent's report, the district office did hear those concerns and they're taking positive action. I know tonight there's several principals here, there's several counselors here. They are always open. In fact, encourage you as a parent to come forward. And as Mr. Bland said, if you don't get the response at the school level that you want, after exhausting that, please come forward to the district level to Mr. Bland and his staff. But I wanted you to know, as your chair, that those you see up here tonight took everything you said exceedingly seriously. The health and safety of our children is one of the most important things we assure as a district. We did not take it lightly. And I hope you find some encouragement in what you heard tonight. And be assured that your board will stay on top of this. This is something that moving forward we will be watching. So with that, thank you for your indulgence. GMSD, by its policy, allows persons to address the board during Citizens to be Heard section of its agenda, but only within certain guidelines. Tennessee law makes no specific provisions for the participation of the public at school board meetings. Thus, there is no inherent or legal right of citizens to make comments during a school board meeting. Prior to making your remarks, you must state your name, address, and the subject of your presentation. If there are several persons who are intending to express the same sentiment, GMSD board rules require that you designate one spokesperson to speak for your position. If you do not do so, and the chair determines the comments are cumulative, the chair may direct the speaker to cease their remarks. Individuals addressing the board shall address their remarks to the chair. Speakers will not be permitted to engage in gossip, make defamatory comments, or use abusive or vulgar language. In accordance with GMSD policy SB 1.404, Remarks will be limited to 3 minutes unless time is extended by the board or otherwise reduced by the chairman to reflect the number of citizens to be heard. TCA 39-17-306 provides that it is a Class B misdemeanor to intentionally prevent or disrupt a school board meeting. Please be advised that any individual who is disruptive or does not adhere to the aforementioned rules will not be permitted to continue or make their remarks at this meeting. This evening, the chair has received 5 notices from individuals that have indicated their desire to address the board. You will have 3 minutes each. And to assure that there's no question this evening, we actually have a timer. So with that, our first speaker will be Samantha Smith. Ms. Schmidt. And I will wait until you state your name, address, and subject before I start your time.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, all right, great. So thank you for letting me speak today. I'm Samantha Levine Schmidt. I'm at 1555 Miller Farms Road, Germantown, 38138, bright blue house, everybody knows it. I'm also a master's level educator, K-5 teacher, and a parent of a middle school child that was relentlessly bullied by the same child for most of the school year. In an academic culture measured primarily by rubrics and data digs and using scaled objective indicators, I'm curious as to why bullying and harassment and abuse is ironically treated quite nebulously in the student handbook. In the instant of our son's bullying, the school district policies were written to protect the rights of the perpetrator more than the victim, with nothing done to stop the harassment other than a day or two in ISS. The Tennessee General Assembly finds and declares in Tennessee Code Annotated 49-6-4501 that a safe and civil environment is necessary for students to learn and achieve high academic standards, and harassment, intimidation, bullying, or cyberbullying, like other disruptive or violent behavior, is conduct that disrupts a student's ability to learn and a school's ability to educate its students in a safe environment. So I ask, what specifically is GMSD implementing in their student policies to protect the rights of a victim, or providing support for their school administrators when there is verbal or physical harassment? After reading the GMSD student handbook, I discovered an enormous amount of district bureaucracy protecting the rights of the bully, and these built-in protections seem to supersede any rights of the victims. While teachers and administrators are busy collecting data, holding discipline meetings, and the like, these bullies can continue to harass their victims. While doing so, these bullies inflict emotionally damaging trauma, usually on a repeated basis, causing an accumulation of stress and feelings of self-worth on victims that are, in many cases, dealing with other pangs of adolescence, causing school avoidance issues and an inability to concentrate on their educational responsibilities. These situations manifest in PTSD-like symptoms, suicidal ideation, self-harm, and other dangerous behaviors. The language of the GMSD student handbook is not written with the rights of the victims in mind. Instead, it bends over backwards to protect the bullies by their lack of definitions and lack of examples of harassment, bullying, or abusive language. In fact, bullying is a Category D offense, the second and last category of offenses, which are left up for school administrators to interpret and act upon in a subjective way. The penalties are useless and benign.
30 seconds.
Okay. And they don't offer any kind of education or behavioral therapies. A day or two in ISS is a common penalty of a Category D offense, and it doesn't faze a child if he or she has no impetus to change their ways. I'm surprised that GMSD, at its inception, didn't make the decision to implement research-backed anti-bullying program on a school-wide level. Instead, GMSD, I feel, is using minimum state-recommended guidelines as its bar, which is surprising because Tennessee is a state that ranks 36 for the quality of public education.
Next speaker will be Laurie Vincent. Ms. Vincent? Please state your name, address, and your topic, please, and I'll start the timer
Yes,
after
ma'am.
that.
Thank you. My name is Laurie Vincent. I live at 2090 Allen Court in Germantown. I'd like to talk today about the expectations of the administration, at least from my perspective. When I was here last and my son shared his story and we began to talk about it, I honestly didn't have any expectations about what would happen after that. I was here to support him. But afterwards I started thinking about it and listening to what that response was. And I think after hearing other stories, I expected that there would be someone that would say, what happened to your son was wrong, and what happened to the other children was wrong. I expected to hear someone say that what happened to them absolutely violated the policies of this school, or the board. I expected someone to say that we will look into it and find out why the policies weren't followed, because as I stated last time, they weren't. We did take it out of the school. We took it to the board. We took it to Mr. Bland's office, and we got really no response. So when I started thinking about what I did expect, I realized that I expected there to be honesty, transparency, accountability. I expected there to be humility. Based on what we had talked about, I did not expect to be accused of pandering to the media by selling my son's story as a way to embarrass the district. I didn't expect to hear a report at the retreat that would say that 90% of all bullying victims are bullies themselves. There's nothing in those comments that lead me to believe that anything that I said, that any of us said at that last meeting, were being taken seriously. So I expect the district to follow its policies. I expect the district to follow the plans that it puts in force. I expect the district to hire that outside consultant that we heard about. I didn't hear anything in Mr. Bland's presentation that indicated that was still a plan of this district. And I urge that it be. If I missed it, then I apologize. But I didn't hear that, and I think that's extremely important. I would ask the board to remember that we are the parents and kids that you are tasked with serving and protecting in your schools. We are not a disgruntled minority that's just out to get someone. I want to be behind this board. I want to be behind the superintendent. I was very excited to have our own school system. But unfortunately, I don't feel like this district is behind me. I don't feel like this district is behind any of us who have reported these concerns to the board and are met with flippant responses or deflections or being accused of the things that have been reported. So I just ask that you listen to our concerns with an open mind and an open heart and respond as if it were your children that we were talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vincent. The chair will ask that there'll be no clapping after any of the speakers, please. Next speaker will be Catherine Kitzman. Did I get that right? Kitzman? I apologize if I mispronounced it. Please state your name, address, and your topic, and I'll start your 3 minutes after that.
My name is Catherine Kitzman. I live at 1571 Brookside Drive, and the topic is policies about bullying. I have 3 points to make. First, this year my daughter was bullied by a boy for about 4 months. She was distracted in school and cried frequently at home. Even several months after the bullying stopped, she continued to be disturbed by it and dreads attending school next year with the bully again. The experience with bullying effectively ruined her school year. Second, I would like the board to clarify the term abusive language in the Code of Acceptable Behavior and Discipline. The code implies that abusive language is different from vulgar, profane language, and abusive language is in Category E, but it is undefined. Without clarity, it appears that some bullying behavior, which is Category D, could be misconstrued as being the less severe Category E behavior of abusive language. Third, I would like to direct your attention to two research-based resources that may be helpful to you. Number one, the American Psychologist, the lead journal of the American Psychological Association, published a special issue in 2015 called 4 Decades of Research on School Bullying. The special issue included an article entitled Translating Research to Practice in Bullying Prevention. Number two, the National Association of School Psychologists published a research-based position statement in 2012 entitled Bullying Prevention and Intervention in the Schools. I forgot to note that I'm here both as a parent and as a licensed psychologist and health services provider in the state of Tennessee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ketzman, very much. Our next speaker will be Carla Christian. If you'll please state your name, your address, and your topic, please, ma'am.
Chairman Landers, my name is Carla Christian. I live at 9574 Drayton Hall Lane, Germantown, Tennessee, 38139. And I am here as a community member and as an educator to just give a word of encouragement to the board and to our community at large. I have been a resident of Germantown for 28 years. I am a wife, mother, and grandmother, and have spent the last 38 years of my life as a public educator. My husband and I have raised our 3 daughters here and now have grandchildren who are attending Germantown schools. I am fortunate to be an employee of the Germantown Municipal School District. I'm here tonight because I care deeply about this community. For this reason, I want to say thank you. Thank you to the city leadership of Germantown for having the vision and commitment to support a local school system. Thank you to our superintendent and our central office staff for leading us to become an exemplary school system in Tennessee. Thank you to the Germantown School Board members for your sacrifice, your diligence, your service in overseeing GMSD and providing the best educational opportunities for all students in our city. Thank you to my fellow educators, the administrators, faculty, and staff of our schools for striving daily to do what is best for kids. Thank you to the amazing families in our city who support us through your trust in educating your kids, through your financial support, and through your hours of volunteerism. And last and most importantly, thank you to our awe-inspiring students who are the reason we do what we do every day. I am grateful for the privilege of living in such a remarkable city, to be a part of a community that values education. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I am a counselor as well, so I get a little emotional about these things that I'm passionate about. John F. Kennedy said that children are the world's most valuable resource and its best hope for the future. I am hopeful for the future because of GMSD's tradition of excellence and goals for continued improvement. May we as a community commit to be positive and solutions-focused in addressing the needs of our students and families and do whatever is best for kids. I am proud to be GMSD. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Christian. Our next speaker will be Heather Fisher. Ms. Fisher, if you'll state your name, address, and your topic, I'll begin your 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Heather Fisher. My address is 1701 Fiddler's Elbow in Germantown, 38138. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. Mr. Manuel, thank you so much for all that you have done in these past 4 years. It is amazing the accomplishments that this district has seen in such a short amount of time. And I want to applaud the GMSD cabinet for all of your hard work and the hours that you spend away from your families, putting other children first, putting this community first, putting teachers first, putting everyone but yourselves first. I want to thank you so much. You know, when I found out that we were finally going to be our own school district, I was so excited. I'm so sorry. I was so excited. In fact, I was so excited that I decided to sell my house, move to Germantown to live and work in this community. And it's a decision that I've never looked back on. We are so blessed as a community. We have the most incredible resources, and the most important resource that we have, the human resource. We have parents that are supporting our kids, that are there at the drop of a hat. We have kids that are coming to school ready to learn. We have teachers that are coming to school every day, giving it their all. We are here for each other. And if there's anything that as a community that we can do to improve, it's our excellence always. And how can we do that? We can build each other up. We can encourage each other. And I just want to say to the parents that may be here tonight, if you ever have a concern, please, please reach out to our schools. Continue to reach out to our schools. We are here for you. Reach out to teachers, reach out to administrators. We will listen. We will get back to you. We are here for you. So thank you, all of us. Thank you all for being here to support the students. But reach out to the people first. And Mr. Manuel, thank you so much for inspiring us. Excellence always. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Next will be Teresa Price. Ms. Price, if you'll state your name, your address, and your topic before the board.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Price. I live at 3131 Saddlegate Cove, Germantown, Tennessee. The purpose tonight is just my words of encouragement, support, and accolades for this school board and this school district. I had the pleasure of coming on board from the inception of the school district. I too, as Dr. Fisher did, chose to move my family. We picked up and moved here 4 years ago, bought a house in Germantown, Tennessee, and I too have not looked back. It has been a wonderful decision for my family. But more to that, this has been not the easiest thing I've ever done, to be honest. Starting a school district was probably the hardest thing I have had so far in my career. And I've done a little bit of everything. I've sat where you're sitting. I've been a teacher. I've been now in a school. I've been at district office. And this has been the most steep mountain I have ever had to climb. We had to build 179 policies when and how much. So yes, I can imagine as you keep going, you're going to find things that have to be redone. But the only way we were able to do it is with leadership, Mr. Manuel. He has given us the autonomy to do this district the way the board wanted it done, which was not, I don't want to say anything derogatory, which was not a cookie cutter district like other districts that had been. This board wanted a unique district. They wanted to be Germantown. They gave us the autonomy to do that. Mr. Manuel passed that autonomy down to us. We would not be where we are today without that leadership. I just want to thank each and every one of you because I feel like all that was up there on that board is completely amazing. Do I think we're perfect? Absolutely not. Do I make mistakes? I have. I hope and pray that every single night I go to bed, I sleep well because I did the right thing by children. And that's what I'll do every day. I still believe it. I work at Disney World, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Our next speaker is Laurie Tingle. Ms. Tingle, if you will state your name, your address, and your subject, please.
Yes. My name is Laurie Tingle. I live at 9948 Westwood Manor, Germantown, 38139. And I would like to speak about Mr. Jason Manuel, our superintendent. I've known Mr. Jason Manuel for more than 13 years. In that time, I've known him as a teacher. He taught biology to my daughter. I've known him as an assistant principal, a principal, and now as our superintendent. Without question and without reservation, I can say that there's no person more passionate, more committed, more caring, or more suited to lead our district than he. Mr. Manuel's love, yes, love, for our schools is ingrained. He is invested, and for he and his family, as for myself and my family, school is life. Mr. Manuel is determined to get things right and to make things right. Summed up, the system is his heart. As a teacher at Houston High School, I cannot stress enough the fact that Mr. Manuel is who we need to continue to serve as our superintendent. His soul is intact. Mr. Jason Manuel is the person we need to lead us on our future of continued excellence, always, as we serve the whole student every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tingle. We have one more speaker. 2 additional citizens to be heard forms were turned in after we began this in accordance with policy. It has to be turned in prior to our beginning citizens to be heard. I do apologize to you both, and I hope you can understand. Policy is policy. Okay, our last speaker for the evening is Mr. Joseph Bond. Mr. Bond, if you will state your name, address, and your subject matter, please, I'll begin your 3 minutes.
Joseph Bond, 430 Dusco Street, speaking as principal of Riverdale School. I just wanted to echo many things we just heard. The wonderful things that this district has done since its inception just is absolutely amazing. I don't have the benefit of Ms. Price's experiences in other places and different roles. I have been in the same school now. This will be year number 20 at Riverdale. So I can speak to my experiences there. But, I distinctly remember the fall of 2013 receiving a phone call from Mr. Manuel. And at the time, Mr. Manuel was the principal at Houston Middle. So I had the pleasure of working alongside him at the time. But I remember receiving a call from him and him sharing with me that he was considering throwing his name in the ring for superintendent. And I remember at the time how excited I was to hear that. And the excitement continues now in June of 2018. The things this district has done under his leadership, nothing short of amazing. The support that we receive at the school level from Mr. Manuel, from the school board itself, and from the district office staff, it has been amazing. So I just wanted to take that moment to say those words. And I also want to say to the parents that are here, Mr. Bland spoke a little while ago, and I do want to encourage anyone that has any concerns, and like I said, I'm speaking for Riverdale, that specifically if you have concerns, you know where to find me. I've been there 20 years. Hopefully I'll be there a few more. So you know where to find me if you have any questions, any issues, because we certainly want to do what's right for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. That concludes citizens to be heard. Thank you to everyone who came before the board to offer remarks. Next item on our agenda is the consideration of the renewal of the superintendent's contract. Before we begin the actual consideration, the chair would like to share with you the evaluation report for the recent evaluation conducted by the board. The evaluation of Jason Manuel, Director of Schools, 2017-2018, the community has expressed, this is an opening statement. The community has expressed concern over the listing of the superintendent's contract discussion being listed prior to citizens to be heard. Under state law, TCA 49-2-203, 14C, the consideration of the contract must be the first item on the agenda. Based on discussion at our work session And then further consultation, thank you, with our legal counsel, we were able to move it down to be the first item on the voting agenda. It should also be noted that legal counsel, the board has involved legal counsel in all aspects of the contract consideration, ensuring that we are adhering to both state and district policies. It is the duty of the school board to annually evaluate the superintendent in the following areas: job performance, student achievement, relationships with staff and personnel, relationships with board members, and relationships with the community. Earlier this month, the district staff hosted a retreat to update the board on strategic plan goals and accomplishments for the 2017-2018 school year. The success of our district continues to grow. The data shared in the different departments' presentations proved how fortunate we are to have a school district of this caliber for the benefit of our children. As a board, we could not be prouder of our school district's year-end results. The evaluation used this year was developed through board input and based on a 4.0 scale. In addition to the board's completion of the evaluations are completed by members of the district cabinet, as well as a self-evaluation done by the superintendent, which does not figure into the overall evaluation. Results are based on weighted averages. The board observational data at 35%, the cabinet survey at 20%, and achievement of board goals and strategic plan at 45%. The weighted results of the evaluation of the superintendent for 2017-2018 by area are as follows: relationship with the board, highly effective; community relations, highly effective; staff relationships, highly effective; business and finance, highly effective; student potential, highly effective; district results, highly effective. The superintendent has demonstrated the highest level of effectiveness in all individual domains for an overall rating of 3.9 out of 4, which is considered highly effective. Additionally, the board developed specific goals and indicators from the strategic plan. The goals were scored by the school board only. District results in this area. Goal 1, Objective 1.1, ensure academic programming that differentiates to meet the various student learning styles. You can find all the aligned indicators and metrics in our strategic plan. The score, 4.0. Goal 2, Objective 2.2, to develop all staff through our performance evaluations and professional development opportunities. Score, 4.0. Goal 3, Objective 3.5, establish community partnerships with local civic and business leaders, church offices, and/or social service agencies with the express goal of creating programs that respect diversity, career exploration, and student well-being. Score, 4.0. The board unanimously scored the superintendent, and by extension the district, as highly effective, the highest level for success in meeting and exceeding the indicators detailed in our strategic plan. Again, this component accounted for 45% of the superintendent's overall effectiveness score. Based on the evaluation and scores, the chair and the superintendent have identified the following 2 areas for growth. 1, self-improvement, increasing the superintendent's professional development opportunities. 2, visibility, increasing the number of superintendent's regular school visits. Additionally, the superintendent and the chair have also identified 2 areas of strength based on his highest scores. The first being district results on the Germantown Board of Education strategic plan, and 2, staff development, increasing the opportunities for professional development. The first item on the voting agenda this evening, as required by TCA 49-2-203-14C, is the superintendent's contract for renewal. As we move into this consideration, and before the chair asks for a motion, any amendments to the contract that may have been discussed at the work session will need to be made individually. So for every amendment, it will be a separate motion. And with that, the chair will entertain a motion to consider the renewal of the superintendent's contract.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the renewal of the superintendent's contract. Is there discussion?
I guess I'll start with, we're going to go, you said each amendment needs to be considered individually. Okay. But the first amendment is to Section 3, where it says, the director hereby accepts employment as director, and the board and the director mutually agree that during the term of this agreement, the director shall be and will perform the duties of director in and for the public schools of Germantown Municipal School District. All it's doing is replacing public schools of Germantown, Tennessee.
Is that a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to amend the contract, paragraph 3, to strike as stated. Is there discussion on the amendment? As there is no discussion, I'll call for the vote on this amendment.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Oak?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
I'll make the motion for Section 6. Under the director shall perform the duties specified in Tennessee Code.
Ms. Fisher, are you asking for an amendment?
Yes.
A motion to amend?
Yes, a motion to
Thank you.
amend. Motion to amend in number 6. Under, it says the director shall perform the duties specified in Tennessee Code anointed, including but not limited to Tennessee Code anointed. And next, there is a section that we'd like to strike, as well as those listed in the job description for director as adopted by the board, or as may be from time to time amended during the term of this agreement, period. Such job description is so amended, comma, is hereby incorporated in this agreement by reference as if fully stated herein. So striking that section, and then amending the next sentence, the director shall devote such time and energies as are necessary to perform the duties specified in the, I can't read my writing.
Just specified above.
Thank you.
And then number 18.
Oh, thank you. And it also is reflected in number 18, where it says, the annual written evaluation of the director's performance will be based upon the director's job description, where it begins, director's job description as set forth from time to time in the adopted rules of the board will be stricken. The rest of the sentence will remain.
Is there a second?
There's another amendment to that.
There is, you're right, thank you, Ms. Parker, where it says, where it continues, the powers and duties of the director are described from time to time by state law, comma, we're adding GMSD policy. Thank you.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to amend paragraph 6 as stated by striking as well as those listed in the job description for director as adopted by the board or as may be from time to time amended during the term of this agreement. Such job description as so amended is hereby incorporated in this agreement by reference as if fully stated wherein. Also to strike in the next sentence the phrase in the job description and insert the word above, and to accordingly amend paragraph 18 by striking director's job description as set forth from time to time in the adopted rules of the board. That's where I lost it. And insert GMSD policy, so that it reads, GMSD policy, the powers and duties of the director as described from time to time by state law, GMSD policy, contracted expectations and the performance goals, etc. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion. Will you please call for the vote?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes. Is there any further discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to amend Section 16. After the director may, however, undertake consulting work with speaking engagements, writing, lecturing, etc., as long as it does not interfere with the discharge of duties and responsibilities of the director, hereunder, the director shall inform the members of the board in writing prior to taking on any of the aforementioned activities.
A motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to amend paragraph 16 by inserting after, I know it's counting sentences. After the second sentence, the new sentence, the director shall inform the members of the board in writing prior to taking on any of the aforementioned activities. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Ms. Subramani, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
No.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes. Further discussion on the renewal of the superintendent's contract.
I'd like to make a motion for an amendment under 19D. Under, in the event of such termination, the board shall pay the director as severance pay the full salary and benefit package enumerated within this contract, adding the wording after a comma, excluding those, quote, other benefits, close quote, and automobile and mileage and, quote, automobile and mileage allowances, close quote, set forth in numbered paragraphs 9 and 11.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to amend 19D. This thing. The second sentence after benefit package by inserting comma, excluding those, quote, other packages, end quote, and, quote, auto and mileage allowances, end quote, as set forth in numbered paragraphs 9 and 11. Discussion?
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to exclude A in 11.
Would the maker of motion agree to the exclusion of A
It's the part with the insurance.
in other benefits? It would be the health insurance, family health insurance.
I will accept the motion,
Well,
the
thank
amendment,
you.
friendly amendment.
Technically, there are no such things as friendly amendments.
We're friendly.
I know, but the parliamentarian me just, it does me in. So then it would read, comma, excluding those other benefits, help me with this, with the exception of 11A, numbered paragraph 11A, comma, and auto and mileage allowances as set forth in numbered paragraph 9 and 11. Is that clear? Is that clear? Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Ms. Subramani, will you call for the vote, please?
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
Further discussion for the actual contract vote?
That's what's under discussion. Are there any further amendments or discussion?
I would like to make a motion to amend the dates of the contract commencing July 1, 2018, and ending June 30th, 2021.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to amend paragraph 2, term of agreement by striking, commencing July 1, 2018, and ending June 30th, 2022, striking ending June 30th, 2022, and inserting 2021.
Yes.
Discussion?
May I speak to my amendment?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I am looking at our history of contracts with the superintendent in this district. We've been a district for 4 years. We've had 2 contracts. If we approve this contract, that will be 3 contracts in 4 years. It seems as though we're getting into a pattern of evaluating, renewing a contract every 2 years. I find it that if that's the way we want to do that, we need to establish that pattern. So it makes more fiscal sense to me, noting the severance package is to the end of the contract, and the district needs to keep that in mind, that we set up the contract so that we are always looking at the contract, renewing the contract with 12 months to the end of the contract. So by setting it up this way, we will be evaluating or renewing the contract till the next, for basically renewing the contract for 3 years with the understanding that we've established a 2-year renewal process. I just think it cleans up any unclarity about when the contract will be reevaluated and renewed.
Discussion on the amendment. Ms. Subramani, will you call the vote, please?
Ms. Fisher?
No.
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
No.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
No.
Thank you.
Further discussion or amendment on the renewal of the contract?
That amendment failed.
On the main motion.
Chair, I have a few comments.
I said that amendment failed, the last amendment.
Yes, the amendment
Okay.
failed, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
As a district, we did start 4 years ago. We're entering our 5th year, and we have accomplished a lot. I want to say that from the front end, and I think everyone who has been involved has accomplished a lot. but as you start building and you go into the next phases of a district, it changes from putting something in place to managing it and adjusting. And as a result, I think you really have to look hard at the contracts and the precedent that you set. As Mrs. Oaf mentioned earlier, this will be our third contract in 4 years for our superintendent. I have not heard any compelling arguments for me that would support a contract renewal at this time. There does not seem to be a benefit to the district for this renewal, and if there were a contract with another party, bus, cafeteria, other, it is my opinion that the administration would not have brought this to the board. The superintendent's current contract has 2 remaining years. We're only halfway through a 4-year contract. And in fact, during the superintendent's last contract renewal process, he specifically argued he wanted it to be 4 years instead of 3, as he did not want to renegotiate during an election year, which is where we are. If there was a clause which is not appropriate in this contract, which there were some, we went through it, we have cleaned up some items, I do believe that those are things that could be taken care of, that do not need to have the extension term of this contract. It is also my belief that to consider a contract renewal for the superintendent, that the superintendent should be exhibiting the characteristics of an extremely strong leader, because that's what it's going to take from here on out to move us to the next level. We are excellence always, and we need to continue to work to improve. A strong leader does not tell his board nor his staff that he is broken by statements from citizens to be heard and comments on Facebook. A strong leader is their strongest when the issues are the toughest. They rise to the occasion and they tackle the issues head on. A strong leader is not frustrated by emails from board members. A strong leader does not publicly show his frustration, and a strong leader definitely does not stop responding to emails from board members because he feels harassed. A strong leader encourages all feedback and addresses it immediately. A strong leader is in the schools regularly and listens for issues that might exist. A strong leader is responsible for his actions, the actions of his administration and his staff. It is a reflection of their leadership. A strong leader embraces large donors to the district and makes it a priority to engage in these projects. A strong leader leads the message of this donor and makes the project a success. A strong leader listens when board members and parents tell of culture issues within our schools. They do not attack the messenger nor ignore these comments. We have an issue within our district of a culture of retribution.
Yes, we do.
I can say this because I myself have been a victim from fellow board members, the superintendent, and even our school's administration. When board members and parents bring issues to leaders' attention, these citizens are doing so with courage and should be made to feel like they are not doing anything wrong, rather that they are doing a service to our district by reporting it. Culture starts with the leader. Strong leaders are the ones who can change culture. But first, we have to admit that there is a problem. I will vote no for this contract renewal, as I believe that the superintendent has areas for improvements which he should address over the next year. As a board member, my responsibility is to our students and our district. This contract renewal is not fiscally responsible, and as a board member, I cannot vote for it. There is no reason to be considering this renewal now, and it is my opinion that any board member who votes yes for this item is thinking of their relationship in the past with the superintendent, and not for the future and for what is in the best interest of our district and our students going forward.
Further discussion on the main motion.
Madam Chair. School boards have the authority to set the policies that have far-reaching consequences into our community, and the instrument that carries that out is our superintendent. As I've stated before, boards don't run the schools. They see that they're well-run. Have parents come to me with problems? Yes. Have I taken them to the superintendent? Yes. Has he acted upon them? Yes. Have I put them out on social media? Have I put them out here in public? No. I've taken to, which is our role, to take complaints and take them to the superintendent so they can be handled. From day one, when elected to serve on this board, my goal has been to have all children be able to be educated to their highest potential and learn to be socially responsible citizens in a safe and healthy environment. We were elected to make the best decisions and to advocate for our children. We're not here to make decisions based on our children or our neighbors' children. We're here to make the best decisions for all the children in our school district. Looking back at the beginning of our district, our board unanimously hired Jason Manuel to be our superintendent. Financially, our district had to take a loan out to get started. We paid that loan off the first year and have built significant reserves from the beginning so we could address our future needs. We fully funded our post-employment benefits. We have a self-funded insurance for our employees and have not raised their health care costs since we've opened our doors. We've put in over $53 million into our school building and campuses. Many of our decisions have not been what Shelby County schools were. We have stepped out of the box. We've stepped out of the box in the other municipalities, and this has been because of our leadership and our board. We could go on about our academic and our athletic achievements and the involvement of our students in the community. We are the top school district in the state. We have committees, forums, and surveys to gain feedback from our community. And I am proud of how our teachers and district staff have helped this district accomplish all these achievements. Yes, we have challenges. We have 6,000 students and over 600 employees. I cannot tell you that no staff is going to make a mistake, nor child. That's why we have federal and state laws and our policies. What we have to ask is, are the federal and state laws being followed? Are our policies being followed? Are we involving legal counsel in every step of the way? There are more to every situation than what you hear in the community or read on social media. As board members, we can't share everything legally. We also need to make sure every student is safe. As a district, I was going to say we need a committee and hire consultants, but that was all put out here tonight. In addition, we need guidance for our students and our parents. Bullying is not acceptable. Again, as board members, we do not implement policies. We do not hand out job assignments, supervise staff. The only way we as board members can assure our district is functioning properly outside of our policies and strategic plan is through communication with our superintendent. Communication is a two-way street. The past 2 years, our board has had every vote be 5-0 except one. We have taken our superintendent and district staff recommendations with occasional tweaks. The superintendent and I do not disagree on everything. But tonight I look at the results of our superintendent's evaluation, the accomplishments of our district since we've opened the doors, and has the law and our policies been carried out? That's what helps me make a decision on his contract. He has asked for a 4-year extension. What I really wanted to see tonight was this community come together in a positive direction. We started this school district because we wanted our own district. People outside said we wouldn't make it, we would not survive. I'm hoping this community comes together and that we move forward in a positive direction. because we are the top school district in the state, and we have lots more to do. Thank you.
Further discussion?
Well, since we've been pointing fingers, and I guess I might as well point a few myself. I'm wrapping up my last 3 months in this position, so I'm going to go out loud and proud. Thank you. I would like to address quite a few items that have been in the public eye and social media. And each of us that sits as school board members are bound by laws and policies that prevent us from revealing information due to privacy and protection of students and employees. And I ask that you keep this in mind as you get pulled into the runaway conversations on social media when you're only getting one side of the story. First of all, none of us on this board take bullying and harassment lightly, but it takes 2 or more persons to make bullying happen. At the last meeting, some of the board members were blindsided by parents and students that reported incidents of bullying that happened in our schools. And as shocked and surprised as we were, I asked for an internal investigation of these incidents. In my findings, one of these happened in 2012. Now, that was before we were even a district. It sounded like they were all happening this year, didn't it? 2 of the incidents were never reported to the administration or the district. The other incidents were handled through the administration of each school. We as a district may not always handle these situations to the satisfaction of each student or parent, but we strive to address them fairly with consideration of the facts as we know them. And how do we get the facts? The important issue is to take away is that the school handled each action and a report was made. Why was the media called to the meeting? Why did one of our board members have a script of all the speakers at Citizens to be heard that evening? Those are the questions that are still unanswered, but are becoming clearer and clearer every day. On a side note, in the past weeks, I've been called pathetic, stupid, ancient, senile, from another universe. Sound familiar? Bobblehead. And that's from, and many more that I can't even repeat in this audience. And that's from these adults. That's from adults in our community. And we think we have a bullying problem? Children learn from example. Don't worry that children never listen to you. Worry that they're always watching you. What example are you setting at home? To set the record straight, and for those who need to know, the school board is informed on all human relation matters when they occur. These incidents are one that we are notified when they occur, but we have no jurisdiction to interfere. That's not our job. The district follows the laws and procedures in place, and I have every I have every confidence in the superintendent and his staff in handling each matter with professionalism and confidentiality. Now let me speak about what I see as the state of affairs of the Board of Education in the city of Germantown. During the original board member's tenure, there was an attempt to discredit this superintendent by a former employee of the district office. 2 former board members and that employee sat around a dining table and plotted as to how to get rid of our superintendent. A lot of social media conversation, a lot of television and newspaper coverage, but nothing came to fruition. Nothing. And as you know, we added 2 new board members in an election in November of 2016. Since that time, I've tried to work harmoniously, but have not met with the same positive intention. There again seems to be a movement to criticize the superintendent and district in every way possible.
Ms. Parker, how much more do you have, and is it on the main motion?
It is on the main motion, Chairman. Let me give you some examples. After working with the city and the Board of Education to negotiate the return of the 3 Gs, one board member promised she would not approach Shelby County School Superintendent, but went the very next day and met with him. Did that help or hurt the negotiations?
Ms. Parker?
You'll have to ask Dorsey Hobson for that
Ms. Parker,
question.
please restrict your remarks to the main motion at hand. The discussion is on the renewal of the superintendent's contract as amended.
Our superintendent's evaluation last year was an eye-opener to the community about the ability of the new board members to read and understand the indicators and categories set forth to judge his performance. While he and his team excelled, they decided to judge him on how well they liked him personally and not professionally. After the dust settled, the evaluation was changed by a 5-0 vote, so that embarrassment can never happen again. I received an email from a board member about endorsing a candidate that was running for juvenile court clerk and was told as a board member that I could not do that. In the past 28 years in Germantown politics, this is the first time I've ever heard of that. I spoke at a Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting as a citizen in support of a project, and at the next board meeting, I was reprimanded by this same board member because I serve on a school board and should not be speaking.
Ms. Parker, can you wrap up, please?
It is. On the request of this board member, the chairman and the superintendent were requested to call the mayor and alderman personally and told them that I do not speak for the Board of Education. Policy 1.100, School Board Legal Status and Authority, all powers of the board lie in its action as a group. Or Policy 1.1061, Boardmanship Code of Ethics, Article 4, I will recognize that authority rests only with the board in official meetings and that the individual member has no legal status. I know that the majority of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen already understand this. Most significantly, it has been reported that recently 2 of our board members have recruited a sitting alderman to run for mayor of Germantown.
Ms. Parker,
I'm trying. To reseat the mayor.
Please.
To reseat the
Ms.
mayor.
Walls, Ms. Walls, please come to order.
I'm sorry, I have the floor. I have the floor.
I'm going to ask you to be removed if we cannot have order. I have now, as chair, asked Ms. Parker to wrap up, to keep her comments on point. And I was about to say, Ms. Parker, can you conclude your comments, please? They have not been on the main motion.
Mr. Manuel has been doing an excellent job as superintendent, as evidenced by the facts that headhunters across the nation are seeking him out. Districts in the state of Tennessee are calling him, and let's not look past the fact that in 6 years from the unanimous vote, we have gone from nothing to the best district in the state.
Any further discussion? Ms. Oaf, do you have anything?
I'm not done. Mr. Manuel is right to want some stability and planning for the future for him and his family.
She's out of order.
Do we want stability as this young district takes the next steps into the future? I say a definitely yes. I'm very concerned about the loss of knowledge that could occur across all levels of staff if Mr. Manuel were to pursue employment in another district. New administrations mean staff turnover, and that could set this district back substantially. Thank you. My remarks are complete.
In case there are any questions, the chair consults with the attorney to ensure that the decisions made by the chair are within policy and on point. To a question that may be asked in the future, our policy does not outline a time limit on board member remarks. Ms. Oaf.
I'd like to make a motion to table the contract until January of 2019.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to table the consideration of contract to January of 2019. Is there discussion?
May I speak to my motion? It would be, I make this motion. I was not going to make this motion. I make this motion now for the good of the community, that we can come forward through this vote to have potentially a more united board to consider this contract.
Further discussion? Ms. Fisher?
Well, that was my intention tonight, that we would move forward in a positive manner, but it seems like civility has gone out the window.
Call for the vote, please.
Ms. Oaf?
Yes.
Ms. Parker? Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
No.
Chairman Landers?
No.
May I speak to the original contract then?
Yes, please. The motion failed.
Sorry, I
Mrs.
didn't
Romani,
mean
the motion
to interrupt. I apologize. I jumped the gun
you're
there.
fine.
Board members are elected servants of the people. We were put into office by the citizens of Germantown to do what is best for our students and our district. When considering the renegotiated contract of our superintendent, I keep returning to the question of timing. Initially, when this was requested, it was about one clause that needed to be eliminated. Then as it moved on, it became about needing stability. But then I started to wonder, because having witnessed the negotiation 2 years ago and knowing the desire to move negotiations outside of an election year, why this year? I'm also concerned about the larger fiscal tie that it creates for the district in terms of the severance package. Not that I ever hope to ever use that. Let me make that clear. Ever. And then I started to have concerns about the climate of our schools based on many of the emails and the comments from the last board member meeting. We have had a challenging spring. No one would say we have not. This has opened my eyes to the needs of our district, the needs of our teachers, the needs of our students, and the need to create a safe and respectful school climate for both teachers and students. It does not exist now. The superintendent's contract cannot take priority over the needs of climate change in our schools. One of the reasons I would like to see the delay, which failed, was to give him the opportunity to right the ship, so to speak, and then we could reward him for it. The superintendent has an existing contract, good for 2 more years. I look forward to working with him during those 2 years. I look forward to a strengthening of the community relationship during those years. Improving morale is a job. Improving morale across the district is a job for us all. But it cannot be the deciding factor in a superintendent's contract. Lengthening his contract right now will not have my support.
Thank you, Ms. Hove. That leaves me. I don't have prepared remarks, so I'm going to talk to you from my heart. I've heard from so many of you, and I thank you. I have read each and every email, and every time there's an issue, what you bring to me as your opinion, your feelings, your observations are always taken into consideration before I cast a vote. I sit here representing each of you, but I also sit here having to look at a bigger picture. When I was appointed to this position, I promised that I would always keep in mind every single child in this district and look at it from a broad perspective. As Ms. Oaf said, it's been a difficult spring. But I can tell you as a board member that our superintendent kept us informed every step of the way. Many phone calls, but he made them to each of us personally to keep us informed. Sadly, we would love to tell you a lot of things that you have asked, but every employee, no matter what, has the right to privacy and due process. When we discuss bullying, it is never right for a child to feel threatened or bullied in school or out of school. It's a serious cultural problem across our country. And it takes the village, all of us, to make this change. I've talked to school administrators since May. I've visited schools. I took the opportunity to talk with Mr. Bland to look at what has been done and continued the conversation with the superintendent of what's going to happen moving forward. It's not enough to discuss it in May and June unless we're going to do something in August, September, and all of next school year. Since becoming chair in January, I've tried exceedingly hard to bring this board together. It breaks my heart that to you and the audience, it doesn't seem like we are. We are more so than I think sometimes our appearances at board meeting reflect. Tonight we've talked about strong leaders. Strong leaders aren't always the loudest person in the room or the person that remarks the most or asks the most questions. Sometimes it's the quiet person that's getting the job done that's really the strong leader. We have tackled issues head on. I can assure you of that as a board member. When it comes to issues involving our children, there are many things we'd love to share, but we can't because the privacy of our students is paramount. We have to protect our kids in this community. But we are so blessed to have an administration led by a superintendent that has taken us from nothing in 4 years to the most highly respected, distinguished district in the state of Tennessee. It's an amazing accomplishment. And no, he would be the first one to tell you he did not do it alone. There are men and women across this district, the 600 employees, that make a difference every single day to these 6,000 children they serve. And there are 5 women who sit here before you tonight that always vote with their heart and with the love and consideration for every child in mind. We don't always seem to agree, but in that, I think we unequivocally agree. I look at the evaluation that I shared with you. I look at everything, the accomplishments across the district, and I'm hard-pressed to understand why we could not reward someone who has achieved beyond our wildest expectations with what is his request, a 4-year contract to make his contract extended by 2 more years. He didn't ask for a raise. He didn't ask for a bonus. He wants a contract extension so that, in his words when we were negotiating, his words to me, so I can continue to serve. I believe he deserves that. Ms. Subramani, please call the vote.
This is on the main motion.
Main motion only, as amended.
As amended. Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
No.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf?
No.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
With that, the main motion has amended, has been approved, and we move on to our next item in the agenda, and that would be the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to approve all items on the consent agenda.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve all items on the consent agenda. Ms. Subramani, will you please call for the vote?
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
First item of business will be the GMSD FY 18-19 Federal Capital Cafeteria, Health Insurance, and OPEB budgets after second reading. Mr. Jones, did you have any?
I just wanted to mention to you the changes after the first reading. First, the IDA supplemental discretionary grant's been removed from the document. Once that allocation has been approved by the state, we will present it to you in the form of a budget amendment. And secondly, the capital improvements budget has been adjusted by $4.5 million, where we've added dollars from the city for the district office at $3 million, security enhancements at $500,000, and the boiler replacement at Riverdale at $1 million.
The chair will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the GMSD FY 2018-19 Federal Capital Cafeteria, Health Insurance, and OPEB budgets after second reading.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the GMSD FY 1819 Federal Capital Cafeteria Health Insurance and OPEB budgets after second reading. Is there discussion?
Yes, I would like to thank the city for their investment in our district with the additional money for targeted specifically for security enhancements of our schools. I know that was a recent decision, and I thank them for that.
I might add, too, they will be giving $100,000 or $1 million towards the boiler at Riverdale, as well as an additional $1.5 million towards replacing the boiler at Riverdale. So thank you to the city.
Further discussion? Ms. Subramani, will you call for the vote, please?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Oaf?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item for consideration is the Apple Master Lease Agreement. The chair will ask for a motion.
I move to approve the Apple lease buyout in the amount of $115,000.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the Apple lease buyout in the amount of $115,000. Mr. Jones, would you like to offer rationale, please?
This is actually just the final fair market value buyout of the lease that began in July 2015. So it will be our final payment, and we will actually own the equipment.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, Ms. Subramani, will you call the vote, please?
Ms. Oaf?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item for the board's consideration, the interlocal agreement for student support services. The chair will entertain a motion. Transportation services.
I move to approve the interlocal agreement for student transportation services.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the interlocal agreement for student transportation services. Mr. Cathy, would you like to offer any rationale?
Sure. This is, I think, our last interlocal agreement that we're still a part of. This has been a shared service that's actually been working well for the district, and this has been reviewed. 5 districts are still participating in this interlocal agreement. This is for shared services, transportation in Collierville. They help route buses, deal with transportation issues, help with policies, and help meet all the new guidelines that the state has put in place regarding transportation. So this is something that's been working well for us, and this is a recommendation from the administration.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Ms. Subramani, will you please call the vote?
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Oaf?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item would be the Aramark contract renewal FY 2018-19. The chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the amendment number 3 to food services management agreement with Aramark for the 2018-19 school year.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the amendment number 3 to food services management agreement with Aramark for the 2018-19 school year. Is there discussion? Mr. Jones, would you like to offer rationale?
This is actually the final amendment in our current contract with Aramark. We'll see a small increase in the management fee of 2.1% with a guarantee of right at $17,000. Small increases in menu prices. This agreement has been reviewed by our attorney as well as approval by the Tennessee Office of School Nutrition.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing no discussion. Will you please call the vote, Ms. Subramani?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is 10E, which is the consideration of policy 4.2031.1, honors AP, DE, and DC courses on second reading. The
Ma'am?
chair will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the revision policy IP 42031, honors AP, DE, and DC courses after second reading.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to consider revisions to IP 4.203.1, honors AP, DE, and DC courses on second reading. Is there discussion? Ms. Oaf, would you like to
Yes.
speak to this?
Of course. I do not believe there is a philosophical difference between the intent of the policy. However, I do find the wording of the policy, the change in the wording of the policy to be unclear and to allow for some wider interpretation. So I'm voting against this change.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Subramani?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf?
No.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
That concludes the business portion of our meeting. Announcements this evening. We will not be having a scheduled meeting in the month of July. The next board meeting the date is tentative and will be announced at a later date. The first day of school, seems like we just started summer. The first day of school for the upcoming school year is Monday, August the 6th. I want to wish each of you a happy and safe 4th of July holiday. We thank you for your attendance and your remarks this evening. We stand adjourned.